Hello, welcome to Devereux's Family Resilience Conference. My name is Carl Clark, Devereux's President and CEO, and I'm excited to bring an amazing group of people together today for a connection on resilience building. There is no job that is more important than caring for others, and it's equally important to care for the caregiver. This event is designed to give families, caregivers, and care teams practical tools and expert insight and moments of connection so that we can learn together and improve the care that we provide throughout the industry. Before we get started, I wanted to share a bit about who we are in a 50,000-foot view of Devereux. We're one of the largest nonprofit organizations and services, insight and leadership in the evolving field of behavioral health care. Our mission is to change lives by unlocking human potential in people with emotional, behavioral, and cognitive differences. Devereux was founded in 1912 by special education pioneer Helena Devereux. Today, we operate a comprehensive network of clinical, therapeutic, educational, and employment programs that positively impact the lives of more than 10,000 children, families, and adults throughout the year. Devereux has nearly 6,500 employees across the country. We are a trusted partner to families and schools and community and individuals throughout our network. As a nonprofit, Devereux's National Board of Trustees is a major component of our work. We have, on a regular basis, meetings with individuals who must be comprised of at least 5 board members that have families in service with Devereux. This is very important because we are working toward what we call the Devereux Family Standard. Simply put, the program must be of the quality that you would feel comfortable placing your own family member in that program. And the inclusion in our bylaws of having family members incorporated into the board assures that we pay attention to that. On that note, I'm excited to introduce the new board chair, Lisa McCann. Quite remarkably, Lisa is our first female board chair since Helena Devereux stepped down in 1957. So it's a new era for us, and we're very excited to have her. Lisa is a lecturer at Wharton MBA and Executive MBA programs at the University of Pennsylvania, and she has her own company, an executive consultant at the Springton Group. She was also a senior executive at Vanguard for over 17 years. I hope you enjoy today's conference. Let's welcome Madam Chair Lisa McCann.
Thank you for that warm welcome and introduction, Carl. I appreciate that. And hello to all of you attending our conference, and welcome. I'm honored to be here with all of you today. We all know that caregiving asks a lot of your energy, your patience, and your time, and your heart. Parents, siblings, professionals, and advocates are all here together to learn practical ways to build resilience in our everyday lives. I personally have family members who've been challenged with mental illness and Alzheimer's, and I know the stresses and strains that caring for our loved ones puts on our families every single day. When I visit our Devereux sites and I see firsthand the caring and compassionate support that our givers provide, I'm truly honored to share in supporting Devereux's mission. As board chair, I'm committed to maintaining the high level of quality care in line with the family standard that Carl just described earlier. And I'm so excited about today's event because it's designed specifically for the people who show up every day to care for others. And now let's share our agenda. From behavioral health experts clinicians, and individuals who live with lived experience, today's presenters are focused on helping caregivers and families better navigate stress, uncertainty, and even burnout. Each session is built around the idea that resilience isn't something you either have or don't have. Rather, it's something that can be strengthened with the right support, strategies, and community. And we're thrilled to welcome two keynote speakers. Dan Harris, former news anchor, New York Times bestselling author, and host of the 10% Happier podcast, will share his journey with mindfulness and meditation, offering his perspective on self-compassion, mental health, and resilience in high-pressure environments. We also will welcome Greg Hedler, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia licensed clinical social worker, professional certified coach, who will explore the importance of community care and personal resilience, along with how caregivers can strengthen their own tenacity to weather ongoing challenges. And you won't want to miss our family panel discussion, where you'll hear personal and candid stories of those caring for loved ones with disabilities and the resilience they've built over time in the face of challenges. And in addition, Greg Hedler will return with Lisa Squires, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia Integrative Health Nurse Coordinator, to lead a mindfulness-based movement session. And Susan D'Amico, Devereux Center for Resilient Children Director, will introduce a strengths-based checklist designed to help adults build resilience. And finally, we'll wrap up the conference with Dr. Ria Fernandez, Devereux's Executive Vice President and COO, and Leah Yaw, Devereux Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer. I'd like to take a moment to extend our sincere thanks to the Devereux Family Resilience Conference Committee for putting together such an extraordinary day and agenda. And I'd like to give a special shout out to my very own trustee colleagues, Clay Armbruster, Jane Taylor, and James Schwab, who you'll hear from directly in the family panel discussion. There's been a significant amount of work that has gone into today's event, and it would be not possible without this team's hard work. So thank you all. Now, our next speaker, who is serving as MC for this event, is Amy Kelly, Devereux's National Director of Family Engagement. In a moment, Amy will go over a few housekeeping items, and she'll introduce our sessions throughout the day. To provide some background about Amy, in her role, she works tirelessly to help guide families across the country in obtaining needed services for their loved ones with disabilities. Amy also serves as a family advisor for the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and the American Academy of Pediatrics. And today is very personal for Amy. She's a Devereux family member, and her daughter, Annie, has been supported by Devereux since 2007. Before we welcome Amy to the stage, we'll share a brief video about the impact that Devereux makes in our communities.
Devereux is a national organization with more than 6,500 staff serving tens of thousands of individuals across the country every year. We serve children, adolescents, and teens with behavioral health issues, as well as individuals across the lifespan with autism and other intellectual and developmental disabilities.
We're always trying to put that personal touch that says, hey, if I had to bring my child here, I want it to be the best place on the planet.
Unlocking human potential is our tagline. How do you help a person reach their full potential? How do you unlock a future that they want for themselves?
Their talents can be discovered, skills can be learned, relationships can be formed, and they might discover aspects of themselves they didn't even know existed.
Devereux can truly change lives, and we come together to do that every day.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Kelly. Thank you, Lisa and Carl, for a wonderful introduction, and I love that video. Today's such a special day for us, and we're so happy that you all are joining us and you've taken time out of your busy schedules to be here. I'm Amy Kelly, as Lisa said, and I'll be serving as your MC today. And I can't wait to share more of my own personal story with you in the lived experience panel this afternoon around 1 o'clock or so. We are joined today by almost 1,000 people who registered and over 15 different countries plus US who signed up for this conference. So we're really thrilled for our inaugural virtual conference to have such a wonderful, diverse attendance. We know that each of you come to us today with some varying situations and in different headspaces. Some of you might be juggling the kids as you try and catch glimpses of the conference. Some of you are here because your child or someone that you love just received a diagnosis of autism or maybe another mental health condition, and you're looking for support. Some of you are here because you are staff or caregivers who give all you have every single day. And some of you might just be here because you find yourself in a rut and you need a boost in your resilience. Whatever your reason, I think that you'll find today will be very helpful and you'll walk away feeling uplifted. That's our goal. Just to you showing up today right now is your first step in resilience and in doing something for yourself. So good job. I'm going to go over a few housekeeping items with you. So first, please note that the conference is being recorded. The webcams and microphones are off completely for all attendees. Every attendee, though, has the ability to turn on captions for their individual viewing, including selecting other languages, so there will be an automatic translation. You can turn on your captions by clicking over the Show Captions icon found at the Zoom toolbar, usually found at the bottom of your screen. The language options are the language options can be found by clicking on the caret found next to the Show Captions icon there. So the little caret sticking up. The chat and Q&A will be available during certain portions of the conference, and we will announce those before so that you know when it's interactive. The chat and the Q&A can also be found in your Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your screen. If you have questions or when the chat or Q&A aren't available and you need help, feel free to email us at resilienceconference@Devereux, DEVEREUX.org. And someone can get back to you. May or may not be during the conference, depending on how we're doing technically. If you have technical difficulties, the best thing you can do is leave the webinar and then try and rejoin through the same link that you logged in on today. Now, if you are in the Northeast US, like I am, you are experiencing like tundra, cold Arctic weather and major winds. And if we lose power, if anyone in our group loses power, we will improvise, but we will also figure out a way to get that power back on and we'll be back with you. So just bear with us if there's any interruptions. If you continue to have technical difficulties, you can also email that resilienceconference@Devereux.org and someone from our IT group will get back to you. I don't want you to forget that to visit our resource section, which can also be accessed by clicking on resources on the Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your screen. This is where you'll find the help guide that you may have seen in the waiting room and other PDFs that you might need that are discussed throughout the day. All right, so with all of that said, it is now my pleasure to begin the conference. I am going to introduce Mr. Greg Hedler. Greg Hedler is a licensed clinical social worker who has completed postgraduate certifications in applied positive psychology and another in Bowen Family Systems Theory. Over the last 25 years, he's been fortunate to work with numerous healthcare institutes and with various individuals, leaders, and teams in pursuit of growth and development. He is a credentialed executive and life coach, executive coach and life coach with the International Coaching Federation, and it has completed 4 coaching certifications and is currently enrolled in his 5th, focused on relationship coaching with the Somatica Institute. Greg proudly celebrates 12 years with the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and 21 years in pediatric healthcare. Greg is certified in a variety of integrative health modalities and incorporates the mind-body connection into his clinical care and life and executive coaching. He was a leading member of the steering committee who established the Integrative Health program at CHOP. And Greg recently expanded his professional experience to becoming an end-of-life doula with INELDA, and now serves as one of their educators. Greg's purpose is to invite and empower individuals to live life with fullness and show up as their best selves. I'd like you to note that the chat will be on for this portion of the segment for interaction, so feel free to chat away. Please welcome Greg Hedler.
Thank you so much, Amy. That is incredible. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. Wherever you are in the world, welcome. Thank you for choosing this opportunity to come together today and be a part of this conversation and this dialogue with us throughout the day. It is an amazing way to start a Saturday where I am, to listen to somebody list accomplishments that I have done throughout the course of my life. It is humbling. It is a moment of pride. And I recognize that all of us have done something to get here right now. We all have accomplished something to choose to be here today, to be in the space that you're in and that you show up as. And I want to acknowledge all parts of you are welcome here. How you show up right now is exactly the way we want you to. And I show up with a lot of curiosity, wondering first, in practicing in our chat, if you bring your mouse to the bottom of the screen, you'll see the opportunity to bring up your chat. So go ahead and click on that so that you're able to now type, because I want our time together to be one of conversation, where I get to engage with you just as much. Angela, excellent. So what I'm welcoming you to do, there we go, we're already engaging. I would love to hear some hellos and good mornings. This is incredible. Yes. Exactly that. Lovely being with you all from all over the place. If you'd like to place where you're calling in or coming in from, great way to build our sense of understanding of one another. I know that it moves fast, that chat. Lovely. Thank you for naming me. I appreciate all of that. Incredible. Today, I am dialing in from Orlando, Florida. Typically, you will find me in Philadelphia at the Children's Hospital there. And I feel really fortunate to be here today to share the beginning part of our time together. My intention, look at all the places we're from. Look at it all. Incredible. My intention for our time today, you see it on the screen there, is this opportunity to build our bark. You might be thinking like, well, what does that mean, Greg? What is that? Build my bark. Well, we all show up today with different intention. You chose to be here. There was something about this conversation you wanted to be a part of. So I want to be curious again. And in our chat, as you feel comfortable, what made you say yes to today? What do you want to get out of being here together? What do you want from our time? So taking a moment and thinking, what brought you to this moment? What brought you here? What would be successful for this? Beautiful. Here we are. Yeah. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Jill. Noticing we're eager to learn. We're eager for a sense of connection to oneself, to others. Beautiful. An interesting topic. Welcome, caregivers. Thank you for taking this time for you. You claimed this time as a time in which you wanted to replenish. You wanted to receive. I know as caregivers, from the work that I've gotten to do, we do a lot of output. And here's an opportunity to receive. That is definitely a way in which we can build our bark. Supportive of others I see happening here. Outstanding. Some pointers. Absolutely. Thank you, church. Build that toolbox, Rachel. I hear you. I agree. That is one of my intentions for sure, is to put something more into that toolbox that you have. Thank you, Valerie, for your professionalism, for being here, for the work you do. Yes. Thank you, Leah. We do not operate in a void. We're in a world that's happening at the same time. So how do we build our bark to do that? My intention during our time is to offer skills, ways of thinking, trying something on. So what I want to name up front is that anything that I offer today is a truth. It is not the truth. It is simply my truth. And it may fit within your paradigm of how you think of yourself and how and what would work for you. And I want you to try it on. That is the only invitation. There's no obligation here. It is all invitation that I'm going to put out there for you, and see how that fits. See if it does something to bring about and restore your bark. I know I keep mentioning this idea, and the image in front of you is of the redwood forest. And so I want to again be with you and ask, has anybody been to the redwood forest? You can put some Y's in the chat there if you have been to the redwood forest at any point in time. Yeah, incredible. That's a remarkable amount of yeses that I'm seeing there. Yeah, so healing with you. Wow, you lived there your whole life, Faith. That is, I am having a little bit of envy show up in that. I will be honest with you, because that is incredible. Yeah, thank you for these continued shares in the chat about why and what brings you here today. Yeah, many moons ago. Appreciate that, Rose. Yeah, spectacular. That, Janet, thank you. That is how I felt too when I got to be amongst the redwood trees. And it is this remarkable experience. If you've not had the opportunity yet, it is an opportunity to think about. I felt so small in the world as I stood up against these redwood trees. And it's fascinating to think about the height of these trees. If you haven't guessed, I really enjoy connecting with you and playing in our chat because this is our conference together. So I'm going to ask another question here, and this is about the height of a redwood tree. Yeah, agreed. What do you think the height of a redwood tree is? How tall do those redwood trees grow? Anybody have any thoughts? Free guesses in the chat. Does not cost anything to put an answer in there. Yeah, very tall, exactly. Yeah, beautiful, Judy. Some child memories there. Massive, hundreds of feet, 500 feet. We see a 300 with a question mark there. Appreciate it. Yeah, 1 to 2. Yeah, you're picking up on something here. Yeah, quite tall is definitely what we're talking about. Exactly. Yeah, you're putting down what I'm going to put down too, Leah. 380 feet is one of the tallest redwood trees that we know. Actually, it's 380.1. Bigger than me, true. 380.1 feet is the tallest redwood tree around, and its name is Hypernion. It's fascinating when you think about something that tall, which is why I felt so small in this space. And redwood trees live over 2,000 years, some even up to 3,000 years. That's incredible, the history and the story that's in there. I have one other question here for now about redwood trees that I think is really appropriate for the reason why we're together. If you think about redwood trees growing up to 380 feet tall, how deep do their roots go? So this is another number moment, free to put into the chat here. How deep are the roots of a redwood tree? Yes, Kirk, you are correct. Thank you so much, right? They're shallow. Exactly, Jennifer. They're shallow. They're not that deep. Isn't that remarkable to think about? Something 380 feet tall have very shallow roots. And the power of the redwood is that it now interlocks the root systems amongst others in the community. That we are connected together through that root system. And even though they're shallow, they hold each other up. That is what we get to do today. We get to come together as a community to be able to hold each other up in this conversation, to be able to better ourselves for being here. It's fascinating when you look into the science of this as well, is that if there is a tree within the redwood forest that is low on nutrients, that is struggling, that is sick, other trees pick up on that through the root system, and then they start sending the nutrients through the root system to care for that other tree. If there's a fire happening far away, then the redwood tree starts sending messages, vibrations through the root system about this preparation, about what is going to come. And they start preparing in that way of knowing and supporting one another. It's fascinating. Yes, exactly that. Strength through togetherness. In the work that we get to do together today, and really the joy of it, I don't even want to make it work. I want to make it enjoyment in which we get to be together. We're building our root system. We're connecting to one another, as Amy had named, 15, 16 countries that are here represented. So many people registered to be able to experience this time together. And that's our root system. The other fascinating part about redwood trees, and then I promise we're gonna connect all this together, is that the bark of a redwood tree is about a foot thick. And the heart of that redwood tree is protected and encased within that thick bark. So that when there are fires and when there are times of challenge, there is resiliency that is showing up naturally in the way in which that tree is made. And that same resiliency is within all of us. We get to cultivate it and build that bark so that we do and protect the things that are most prized by us. And so throughout the rest of my time and throughout today together, it is about what we can do to layer in, to allow ourselves to experience resiliency in our own way and to build that bark. That is what we get to do together. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful commentary. Thanks for all this connectedness. So we've been doing such an incredible job of connecting with one another, and I appreciate all of that we're creating. And I want to offer one of my first skills that I've come to know. And it is the skill of what I think of as hello to here. Hello to the moment that we have found ourselves in right now, as it is, without changing it, without doing anything other than that, is the ability to acknowledge this moment. And it may sound simple in some ways, and I think I also can name that it doesn't feel that simple as well. That when we really take the time to pause and acknowledge and check in, I recognize there's lots happening at the same time. There's lots going on inside me. Hello to Here comes from a poem, a book of poems called In the Shelter by Padre Otuma. And Otuma is a theologian and a poet and had created this book, this anthology of poems, and one of them being this Hello to Here conversation. And so when I experienced this, it was this moment of thinking about how can I start applying this conversation to myself? How can I acknowledge what's happening in this moment? Hello to here. And we can start doing this as one of our moments of check-in with ourselves. What can I acknowledge that's here today? So as a therapist and as a coach, something that comes up for me often when working with people is that we have something that we can call as something that's happening behind the scenes, right? And this is ours. It's happening over here. And the opportunity allows for us to make that something we get to express out loud, right? Making what is held within something that we all can experience without, making the internal external. And so much of the time, there's so much inner workings happening that take up so much of our energy. And what would it be like to actually then acknowledge these parts, to be able to put them out there for other people to know, this is how I show up right now. I'm feeling taxed. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling drained. I'm feeling hopeful. I'm feeling optimistic. I'm feeling gratitude. To be able to take that internal and make it external is the opportunity that we get to practice in this skill of hello to here. In the chat, right? In the chat, if you could, what do you think one of the worst questions you could receive when you walk into the door at the end of the day? If you're somebody that leaves the house, or if you're somebody who stays in the house and then greets others as they come in, what do you think is the worst question? Judy, yes, right? What's for dinner? Anybody else have any of those questions, right? Can I, ... I see you, Jill. Yep. Yeah. Uh-huh. Houston, we have a problem, Teresa. Thank you for that. Yeah, I need you to. All of these asks that show up for us. Thank you. Where have you been, Sheila? Good question. Very good. we all have our own, and the one that resonates most for me when I think about this is what's for dinner. Like there's a choice that I have to make right now. What's for dinner? And that comes with sort of like a thinking process, which I may not have available. And what would it be like if instead of walking into that experience with an ask or a question of where you been, do you, can you, what is, all of that, if we actually before the ask did a moment of hello to here. How are you showing up in this moment, in this conversation? Are you ready to have this conversation right now? What is available to you in this moment? And it is this acknowledgement of hello to here. I've taken this first introductory moment in my own circle of those who I love and care for, and have changed the questions that we start with. And some of the questions that I like to start with is, what are we celebrating today? What are you celebrating? As you come through the door, what's the celebratory thing we want to acknowledge? Or what is a meaningful moment from your day you want to tell me about before anything else, if there's anything available? And these begin to create different ways to connect. It brings in the acknowledgement of hello to here. So I can meet you in this moment more authentically, more honestly. And sometimes we may come in with a really big celebration. And sometimes the celebration may mean I just got home and that is enough to feel celebratory around right now. All of this is an acknowledgement of where we are. And if we're beginning to practice this skill and allowing people in, we're allowing to get to know where we meet one another. Yeah, decision fatigue, exactly, Rudy, so real. I'll talk a little bit more about that later too, of what makes that real for us and how we can acknowledge that as part of building our bark. I'll also put in here, this is just a plug to think about for yourselves, is like when people ask you the question of like, how are you? How are you? What is the typical responses if you feel like you want to place something in the chat there? When someone says, how are you? What are the typical responses that we get, right? Yeah. Yeah, Lori, I want to hold that truth as well, right? A worry about the future. I appreciate that. That's a really beautiful hello to here moment too, because it's honest and it helps us all relate even better. Thank you for that vulnerability. Yeah, so much of the time we respond, yes, Amy, right? Fine, fine, fine. We do this placating of saying fine for things that may not be true, which is a dishonest hello to here moment in the most socialized way we know. So when I got to work on the, yes, blessed, I love that one. I appreciate that one, Tanya. When I was working inpatient on the unit here at CHOP, one of the things I recognized was when families were greeted by other providers and they would say, how are you? And families would say, fine. And here they are on the inpatient unit being admitted to a hospital and they're responding with fine, which was definitely not the hello to here I think that we were meeting them in. And I would always step forward with the acronym for fine, freaking out, insane, neurotic, and emotional. Which one of these are you really? Which one does that really identify as? And I think that begins to allow for our truth to show up a little bit better. So one resilient act that we can do is to really take the time to acknowledge what's happening right here, right? What is showing up right now? And it begins to allow for us to really land with each other differently. Because so much energy is taken to sometimes hide all of the experience. And I know not everybody deserves your fullness and your vulnerability, and it is finding those that can hold it and be with you in it, right? And that is, feel free to borrow as you wish, right? It's a good acronym to check in around. So if we really want a different answer, the thing that I really show up in is to say we have to ask a different question. If we want to be in connection and hold intimacy, relationship, where we gain so much resiliency from being in relationship with others, that redwood root again coming in, then we want to ask different questions. I moved to share just a brief story that just happened the other day. I went to a local cafe and I had greeted the barista by making eye contact as what feels comfortable to me. And I asked the question, what type of day are you having? What type of day are you having? And they paused and they looked at me and they shared a little bit about like the day that they were having and really looked like I took them off guard by asking this different type of question and the way in which I showed presence to who they were. As we continued the order at the end, they then said to me, "I'm charging you $1 because you made me feel human today." And that was just a moment of connection where we both felt resourced. We felt more resilient because we felt seen and appreciated and connected. So, this hello to here opportunity is one in which we can be in relationship even better when it feels right, when it feels good to us. Some of the things that we might think about in acknowledging our hello to here can come from that space of what emotion feels most present to me right now. Is there a physical sensation in my body that feels like it needs to be named? That pain in my neck, that sense of shoulder moving it around. What is it saying to me? The idea of my social connection. Do I feel isolated? Do I feel alone? Amy had named that in the Northeast right now. There's lots of snow, and I was home for that snow, and I live on my own. And so being in that space alone felt really isolating. And I felt like I needed to acknowledge my hello to here as a socialized sense of being on my own and some of the loneliness that came with that. And by acknowledging it, it allowed for me to do something with it. Spiritually, how do I feel? And spiritual has many different ways of being. Can I acknowledge that relationship? Is there a thought that is persistent right now that wants to be seen, wants to be heard? And it is in our resiliency that we begin to acknowledge this. We get to say hello to these parts of ourselves that are all vying for our attention, that are all asking for energy from us. And if we allow for them to be seen and heard, what then? I'm thinking about, by the way, uncle is one of my favorite roles that I've been cast in this life. And so I am an uncle of several little people in my world that I really love being with. And I watch as my sister manages three of her own children and how they all vie for her attention in different ways. And that mom, mother, mom, mommy, mom. And when she's able to give that attention, it quiets the response. Hello to here is a practice of that. It allows for us to be more resilient by acknowledging the story that's happened. So in the chat, if you could, and you feel bold and brave right now, in the chat, if you could put one part of yourself you're acknowledging as you show up, is there an emotion that's present? Is there a thought that's present? Is there a physical sensation that's present? What can you say hello to? And in the chat, I welcome you to do that. Hello to, and go ahead and place that right there. Thanks, Patty, for kicking us off so strong in that. Yeah, and Christine, I'm savoring it depends on the person asking. Absolutely. There's only so much I may want to share with certain people at certain moments. I hear you and I see you, and I appreciate you knowing how to identify that for you. Yeah, we're feeling, thank you, Bonita, anxious. Allow that to be here. Hello to anxious. Hello to anxious. Thank you for being here. Hello to exhausted. Hello to strength. Hello to loss of important purpose. Right? I breathe with that one. Hello to rejuvenation and gratitude. Hello to tired and stressed. Hello to annoyed. Absolutely. Spread thin. Jacqueline, thank you for naming that. Right? Hello to isolated. I feel you. Thank you. Yeah, Vicky, thanks for being here. We're really glad you're here too. Yeah, Linda, hello to finding a positive spin on life. Hello to uncertainty and exhaustion, feeling resentful. Thank you, Abby. Vulnerable. Hello to grief. Cheryl, you're speaking a language I am familiar with and speak from myself. Yeah. Thank you for all of this. Hello to sad and empty nest. When we begin to allow these parts, and I want to celebrate each of you, whether you shared in the chat or not, allowing it to come forward in your mind, allowing it to be here, we acknowledge it, we welcome it. And then we begin to then think, what do we get to do with it? What do we get to do with it? Hello to me. Yes, Aaron. Hello to you as well. Right? Bold, brave statements, Erica. Yes, that is an accomplishment. that recognition, this is resiliency, is acknowledging there is a need for myself that I have. Consistently, one of the things that I do with individuals in my life, work-wise and or other, is when there's an ask made of me. Simple example, a colleague of mine asked to move a meeting. This happened to have been the third time this meeting got moved around. And when they sent the ask to me, my response back was, thank you for asking for what you need. Thank you for asking for what you need. When we finally did get to meet with one another, she went back and she, at the end of our meeting, said, I want you to know something, that I felt so much guilt for moving our meeting another time because I needed to care for my child. I needed to do something for my family. Your response of thank you for asking for what you need allowed me to soften and get rid of that guilt that I was holding, that I felt that I asked for something I needed and I thought there was a needing to be guilt or shame around that story. Hello to shame, hello to guilt, and then hello to being able to support each other in the asks that we have. So Erica, I see you, I appreciate you, and naming the thing that you need for you is a way in which we say, resiliency starts right here. I need this moment, I need this hour, I need this day to be in a community that's supporting me in my sense of hopefulness. So outstanding. Hello to sore feet, yes, yes, compassion for those sore parts of ourselves, yes. When we begin inviting these to the surface, we begin being able to do something with it. Oh, now that it's here, now that I've acknowledged it, now I get to do something with it in some way. Yeah. Thank you, Helen. So this practice can be one in which you take on for yourself. It can be one that you start to incorporate into your family culture, that we take the time to say hello to here. There's something really beautiful. And maybe some of you had, and if you ever had, please, you can name it in the chat. You also see an image on the screen there. I see and hear you're overwhelmed. Thank you, Lori. There's an image on the screen, which is you can walk through this. That is the image there. And the name of it is actually blanking from my mind right in this moment, which is so funny. Being able to have sort of an intention and thought as you walk into this circle, you're able to begin to acknowledge, thank you, Judy. It was so far away. It was right there. I was trying to grab it. Thanks for Karen. Labyrinth, thank you. Wow. The labyrinth. When you're walking into the labyrinth, we bring an intention, a hello to acknowledgement of this moment, and we carry it with us and we allow for us to be with it. And once we enter into that second or the middle of that labyrinth, we're able to make a choice of whether we place it down and leave it or walk with it back out. Our hello to here practice allows for this to be a continued acknowledgement of where we are and how you might be able to better connect in these ways. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. Yes. The depth of this. So the practice, if you continue with it, right, it is that acknowledgement of what's on the surface. And if you keep going, you begin to discover a depth. There's so much happening at one time in us that we want to keep asking hello to here because there's so much, to your point, that's happening all at the same time, all at the same time. It's really quite impressive how all of this shows up. So much so, we are so complex as human beings. This is another moment of numbers in the chat, everybody. I welcome you to this. How many human emotions does an individual feel during the course of any given day? There's actually been studies around this, and there's a number that has come to mind now. So if you could, how many emotions do people experience in a given day, one day time? Lovely. Thank you for your guesses. Yeah. Catherine, I see you. All of them with periods in between. It's so good. Thanks, Thomas. Hundreds, Danny. Absolutely. All of them and over again. Wonderful. Too many. That's truth. So What we know from wonderful people who've committed to this, Dr. Travis Bradbury has offered us this acknowledgement that human beings, on average, this doesn't mean all of us, it doesn't mean all the time, yet on average, a human being can experience 527 emotions in a given day. Just pause with that for a moment. Exactly, right, Carrie? That's my thought too. Is that I experience 527 emotions and you experience 527 emotions that means all of this emotional stuff is in and around us all the time. We swim in an emotional space all the time. Whether we acknowledge it or not, guess what is happening? It basically translates to over 20 emotions an hour, right? That we are experiencing. And that means we get a text that excites us, we get an email that disrupts us, that our children ask something from us, our partners, ourselves, everything is causing some level of an emotion. Subconsciously, consciously, it is being experienced, right? Right? Who did that counting? Lots of studies. Bradbury had a very big team of people that watched for these emotional cues and moments within people's experiences, behaviors, nonverbal communications, all of this to track this moment of emotion that happens. If that's the case, one of the most resilient things that we can start doing for ourselves is recognizing that we are emotional beings, that we are feeling something all the time. Yeah. Correct. Yes. Yes, Leanne. So despite the fact that maybe we don't have many words for our emotional selves, there are many emotions that are happening. Some of us may be familiar. You may have knowledge of this movie called Inside Out. There may be some of us that have seen this movie, maybe one and or two. In that movie, yeah, right. It was a good one. It was exciting for me, again, as a therapist, to be able to put emotion on the screen for people to relate to and see an understanding of. Yes, exactly. That work of those emotions that are behind the panel, so to speak, that's the work of Dr. Peter Ekman. Ekman identified that most human beings can name about 5 or 6 emotions. Like that's basically where we play in most of the time. So we play in these broad strokes of like, I feel sad, I feel angry, I feel joy, I feel disgust. Yet, there is subtlety to all of these different emotions. There are variations. There's a gradient to sadness. There's variation on it. It isn't simply just sad all the time. Sadness can be, in part, a little bit of loneliness, maybe in sad. A little bit of grief may be different. Maybe complicated grief may be different than sad. And so it's wonderful because we begin to identify that there's an experience happening in some way, and then we get to choose to do something with it. Yes, right? Uh, it is the avoiding of emotions. I appreciate this. So I want to play with that. Thank you. Thank you, Carmen. Um, when we think about these emotions, yeah, exactly. Correct, Aaron, right? That is, see, it is less nuanced for younger people. You're so well said here. We learn in our community. Thank you for this. Yes, to all of what you're saying. So good. So when we think about that we ourselves are having these emotional experiences, and then the people that we get to love and care for, those younger people in our life, they're also beginning to experience this space of emotion within themselves. And so the better we get at being nuanced in how we feel, we better be able to support ourselves in that experience. And so I'm offering another skill that I want to name here. And this skill, when I think about it, is called the 3 Ns, the 3 Ns. So we make it easy for our brain to hold on to. So 3 Ns of emotional intelligence is what I want to offer to you as another way to build our bark. And it's very similar. It starts out with that hello to here moment, because the first N in that experience is to notice what's happening emotionally within my system right now. And the second is to be able to begin to put language to that. What is the emotion that I'm having so that I can better be able to relate to it, so that I understand what it is. So I notice and I name. And then the last piece is to navigate. And you've heard this in my language today is, what do I get to do with it? If I'm feeling that, what do I get to do with it now? Notice, name, navigate. We can do this with ourselves, and we can do this with the other people in our lives to begin to support them in the emotional navigation of what's happening right now, what's going on. Notice, name, navigate. Beautiful. Exactly that. So Harvard decided to do a little bit of a test, an experiment, if you will. And everybody in this experience needed to be arachnophobic. If you could, in the chat, what is arachnophobia? Can we all have a knowledge? Let's take a moment here. Arachnophobia is what? A really cool movie from the 90s? I don't know. Right? Spiders. It is all about spiders, okay? So thank you for all this engagement. So everybody in the study had to have an identified fear of spiders. And what they did was they put people into two separate rooms, and the rooms were set up exactly the same. That in the middle of each of the rooms was a terrarium. You know where this is going. And in the terrarium were spiders. Then individuals were then given the instructions to get as close to the terrarium as humanly possible. Now, caveats. Room A was told that they could express whatever they wanted. They could express it loudly. They could say and express whatever they needed to. So they could vocalize. They could say, no, 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 I don't want to know. Room B was told to zip it. Say nothing at all. Knowing what you know now, having the skill of notice, name, and navigate, which room got closer to the terrarium? Room A or room B? Notice, name, navigate. Who got closer to the terrarium? Outstanding job, everybody. Congrats. Absolutely. Room A was able to do this because they were able to then express and step forward. The navigation was movement. They were moving forward with this. Yeah, the one that spoke. Right, exactly. Sharon, I just saw that. That was funny. That was really good. So it is this ability to express that got us to move forward. Now, room B equally offers us a really great opportunity to recognize resiliency in action for a moment. And what room B was doing was this idea of suppression. They were efforting to manage their emotional output. And so what I think about that, what I think of is the beach ball analogy. When it's that thing that wants to be seen and we do everything to push it down, get it out of the way. Yeah, tough upper lip, right? Thanks, church. All the ball wants to do is to pop above the surface. It wants to be seen. It wants to be noticed. And the more we push downward, the more we get stuck in that dynamic. And so it's not surprising that room B then had their feet glued to the floor because all of their energy was pushing downward. They were doing everything to keep it quiet. If you think about this, in the space of relationship, that when we're not expressing the things that we feel towards or about the person that we are with, the relationship gets stuck because we're pushing everything downward. And we'd be curious that if something were able to come to the surface, that the resiliency of that relationship could actually then navigate forward. I'm asking for really brave work when it comes to that. I absolutely understand that. I practice it just as much. I am by no means an expert and can recognize when people get stuck in dynamic, it is the unspoken that keeps us there. And so we begin to allow for that to be moved to the surface, whether it be amongst ourselves, whether we invite a third party in to help navigate that in some way. All of that is making us more and more resilient because it has that navigation moment. It's moving us forward. Yeah, keep calm, carry on attitude doesn't always support us, doesn't always give us the idea of really what's happening. So this first part of our time together in my conversation with you is really about allowing something to come to the surface, to be able to acknowledge that there's a lot happening. We are complex creatures that are doing this. And that our emotional self, if we look at our biology, this is fascinating, so interesting to think about. And this goes back to Rudy's statement earlier about senses of decision fatigue. The way the brain is set up is that if the brain was divided into different parts in terms of emotion and thinking, that the brain's given 100% of energy to do with as it wishes, that the brain is so hungry emotionally that it takes up 80% of that energy. 80%. That's a lot of emotional energy that's asked of from the brain, which means that there's about 15 to 20% of the energy remaining for our decision-making selves, where our language and creativity comes from. That is exhausting because our emotional self is much more available. However that looks in all the different bodies that we are in, our emotional self will be much more predominant than our executive functioning. It is how we're designed, fortunately, unfortunately, as human beings with high emotional experiences. So that when I reach decision fatigue as a caregiver, my emotional self is going to step forward much more easily. It is why I recognize that at the end of the day, if I can't decide what's for dinner, my emotional brain will say peanut butter and jelly, a bowl of cereal, or these Oreo cookies look real good right now. That is going to be my dinner. And that is the exhaustion and the emotional brain coming forward. So we want to think about how we then use what our biology is sharing with us to better build our resiliency. And one of it is becoming even more increasingly aware of how I'm showing up in all the different ways. Me too. Me too. That protein cereal that they offer now, that has definitely been a saving grace. I'm going to show you a piece of artwork really to punctuate on this emotional parts of ourselves right now. And this emotional artwork is done by an incredible artist named Abby Van Musen. And Abby has created some beautiful visual art in terms of our emotional selves. It's awesome. Yeah, thank you for this. Not a beer. That's a different choice. That is also available. And this emotional diagram that you see in front of us here, it helps to highlight that there's emotion that lives in various different parts of our body. That if we're able to see these things come to life within us, we're better able to caretake to those parts. We are really good. My story is that you, as caregivers and providers, you are really good at caring for others. That's part of how you are built, and I appreciate that part of you. I also recognize that we may not always take the acknowledgement of what our need is and how our emotions are talking and needing caregiving as well. And so what Abby creates in this beautiful visual here is to recognize, oh, my body is really telling me the things that it wants attention. And so it's awesome because it separates the different areas or the different emotions out in some way. And at the same time, yeah, happy to share all of the things. Yes, yes. Let me see this. Hangry is an emotion. Yes, Leanne. I'm not cute when I'm hungry. I will name that very clearly. So when you look at this diagram, it's nicely separated out all these different emotions, and you put them really on top of each other to really experience the fullness of human. This is all the emotions I feel. So this beautiful diagram allows for us to be curious and say, like, well, what do I need if fear is present? What do I need to feel safe right now? What a beautiful question to be curious about. If I'm feeling angry, what needs to be moved or changed in this moment? If I'm feeling absolute joy, what needs are met in this moment that I can acknowledge this feeling of joy is coming from? It allows for that curiosity to be really, really true. Yeah, exactly, exactly. This is some of the emotions, yet this is in Abby's work chose these 6 to focus on, and certainly there are several different types of emotions we might also consider that for you, where would you track it? Maybe your anger doesn't live where the art anger lives. Maybe it's somewhere else that it shows up as. And it's this invitation to know ourselves in such a way that we can then meet ourselves in that moment and caretake from that space. So beautiful artwork, definitely available. Simple Google search too will give you Abby's ability or Abby's artwork. So I'm gonna put Abby's name in the chat. Beep. For you, if you so wish to follow and find. There's some other beautiful art that they do as well. So this first portion of the conversation is around acknowledging what is, being present to what is, engaging in this experience with others. The next part is really this invitation of what do we want to do with it? What do we do to really continue to build our resiliency around these areas? And so for the remaining portions of our time together, what I want to talk about is these acts of resiliency, of really where and how do I create them for myself? I want to do a little bit of a pulse check for a moment and check in on you. How's this conversation going? Are you finding value already? A nugget, something that has stood out for you, that is helpful and supportive to who you are? Taking a moment of connection with all of you. Excellent. It is a joy for me to share all of this with you. Yeah, those golden nuggets. That's what I think of those, Lisa, as like mining for gold moments. Like, what is the mining for gold? Yeah, Jill, excellent, excellent. And I'm going to show you one other resource as well before we're finished here too on the emotional things that we can think about. Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for that connection moment. I always find that to be really supportive. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, we take it for ourselves and then we bring it forward, Lori. That is also how I work. So let me talk about this idea of building this resiliency. Yes, yes, Catherine. It's incredible. That always is such a way of empowerment that we become better at this being the emotional regulation, the idea of this when we get to also express and share it with others. So yes to passing it on, passing it forward, talking about it. I feel that begins to integrate it even more. So with that, I'm going to talk about regulation in the chat, if you would, again, these moments are connection. What do you do to support yourself? What do you do to really support yourself in your experience? What do you do to care for yourself? So you might already have a list of things that you do already. Yoga, meditation, beautiful. Lisa and I will come back later and practice some of that with you all. Invitation, some Zumba, movement, journal and prayer, beautiful. Yeah, not enough. Really beautiful recognition, Jen. That's a beautiful acknowledgement. Brave choice. Right? Call a friend, lift weights. Yeah, I'm with you, Abby. Lifting weights, moving weight, always for me is a beautiful morning practice that gets me into my body, allows for that preparation for the day. Swimming laps, reading. Look at all this. You're so good. Yeah, right? All of this. Punching bag moments, outstanding. Cooking, listening to music. So I'm going to offer this in an understanding of what you're talking about. Regulation, the way regulation looks, it has three different actual components to it. Hug a pet. Yes, Diane, that's so good. That is all vagal nerve stimulation there. Hugging and holding. A really good hug, everybody. And I know this may feel awkward. Yet, a really good hug that starts to co-regulate the body is when you hug somebody for a minute. Be in that embrace. Welcome that person home, hold on for just a moment longer. Even placing my hand on my heart here stimulates that vagal nerve that runs through our body, all our major organs, that holding on, right? Holding tight, allowing for that to be there. Really beautiful co-regulation. And when somebody wants to pull away, you can say, just a moment more, please. Just a moment more. And if you really want to step it up, you can do and practice something called a heart hug. And a heart hug, this is a good practice, some play work that you get to do after today. Notice your instinct to how to hug. I want you to do the opposite. So move to the left. And when you move to the left, you actually place your heart up against the other person's heart in this way. We lots of times do a hug this way, which is defending the heart. You can actually then push the heart up against one another. It's a beautiful moment of heart regulation and breathing. Practice. See what that does for your resiliency as it does, right? All of these are amazing suggestions. What we're talking a lot about with regulation and is building our bark, right? Yeah, walking is beautiful, is intensity. We're looking to dial down the intensity of the experience. And so we do yoga, we lift weights, we pray, we connect with friends, we go outside, you hold on just a moment longer. All of that is a way in which we regulate that dials down the intensity of the experience, which is great. That tends to be what people think a lot about. I'm going to offer you two additional ones that I think are equally as a supportive way to think about in terms of our emotional self. So the first one here is this idea of relationship. This is when I discovered this has really been supportive for me. So growing up, for me, anger was an experience that was really suppressed. It wasn't something that my family really taught me to express and allow for. It really only was owned by my dad. That was the emotion that he owned and wanted to show up in. And the rest of us had to keep anger small. As an adult, and as I continued to build my own relationships with others, recognize that frustration and anger was a natural experience that is permitted to be here too. Maybe not always easy to express, maybe not always expressed in the best way, yet has a place. So I took on a coach, and one of the things that I was working on was the ability to be in relationship with anger. So we might think about there are many emotions out there that we may not have a relationship with. It may not be easy for us to feel or express sadness. It might not be easy for us to express anger. And the work of Brené Brown shows to us that one of the things that most people have a challenge with is actually a relationship with joy, with feeling good. There's even a word for it. It's called foreboding joy. And foreboding joy is this idea that the good will be taken. And I'm practicing for that loss right now. So I'm not going to allow myself to feel the whole thing. Me too, Lori. My mom really embodies this when we go on family vacations together. And after the first day of vacation, of a 7-day vacation down the shore, after the first day, she will already start being in that space of there's only 6 more days. There's just 6 more days. That's all we have. Already in the loss, already outside of it, right? And so we recognize that there's relationship with certain emotions that are hard for us. The invitation that we're not solving for today, nor do we need to fix, is to recognize there are emotions that are hard for me to hold. And where can I begin to build the bridge to that emotion? Yeah, the guilt. Yeah, I hear you. Yep, that foreboding joy is a real thing. We think about when's the other shoe going to drop, and I need to start preparing for that shoe drop now in some way that makes me feel prepared for whatever the uncertainty is that's going to happen next, that I'm going to be in that space in some way. It's a defense mechanism that's supportive, and it also steals our joy. The best thing that I can offer to you that builds bark in those moments of foreboding joy is the practicing of gratitude. And I know that some of us may feel certain ways about gratitude and gratitude journaling, and I appreciate all of that. And want to offer that gratitude is a present-based practice. So in those moments when my mom is in that space of thinking there's only 6 more days of vacation, I come back to the invitation to say, what is great about today? What are you most grateful for that we got to experience today? What was it like to have all your grandkids here at the same time? Beginning to think about the present moment takes us into that space, right? Into that space. Yeah, yeah. And I'm sensitive around gratitude. It is not always in the worst moments that I say gratitude's going to be the band-aid for it. It is specifically in these moments of joy that it feels like it's being taken, that we start thinking of the loss, that I invite you to gratitude. And I'm not one to say that when things are hard to think great thoughts. Yes, you can dig into the golden moments that might be there. And I also am one to feel the feel fully. If you're feeling the feel of sadness, feel the feel. Allow it to be there. Don't rush it. Allow it to stay if you want it to. And then possibly we move on from there. It's a supportive way. Yeah. Church. People love to problem solve. People are problem solvers. That tends to be the way I find lots of interactions to be, is like people want to save, people want to support, people want to fix. And I'm not always in a fixing place. I don't always want to be fixed. One of the things that has helped me is being able to ask people, how do you want me to listen right now? As I'm going to be here with you, how do you want me to listen? And this comes from a book called Super Communicator. And as I listen, are you wanting help? Are you wanting to be heard? Or are you wanting to be hugged? How do you want me to listen? And being able to think about that. Yeah, brought you to this moment. Beautiful, Janet. Just connecting to that. And thinking about that idea of how we want to listen and how we want to be supported gives everybody else a better sense of what we need in that moment to build our bark, to be stronger in it. Heard, hugged, helped. And it's amazing when we can then ask for what we need. It goes back to what we talked about earlier. How does that happen? So intensity, relationship. And the last one that I appreciate here is perspective. And the question that I bring to you, what else is true? When I think about perspective, there's sometimes in the way in which I'm thinking that I get really stuck. That the way I'm thinking is making me feel a certain way. And so I begin to ask myself to expand the screen and say, what else is true? I kind of click that button up top that expands and makes the screen larger in that way when you're watching YouTube or anything like that. And we begin to think about, right, what else is true? And we begin capturing those moments to be able to create a bigger picture of what is happening right now. And so, yes, we may be down a day of vacation and we have 6 more to go. Yes, today is a really hard day and I may not be showing up as my best self. And tomorrow is another opportunity. Yesterday was another opportunity. So we practice in this space of what else is true to help expand the screen because our brains, our minds can get really fixed on something. And in that perspective, we start feeling about something. So being able to then think about what else is true, to be able to expand that is a practice of building bark, is being able to become stronger in that moment because we're taking in all of the moment, not just a part. Challenging and true at the same time. Yeah, thank you, Janet, for sharing a piece of yourself with us in that way. I'm celebrating all the action in the chat here. Thanks, Christine. Yeah. Thank you for all of this. What I want to offer, some acknowledgement around what I'm already beginning to play with right now, is this idea of what is called paradox. Paradox. Yeah. Yeah, I'm noticing in the chat here how gratitude is playing a part in your stories and how you're already flexing this muscle of resiliency of being able to think through and experience the fullness of a moment. So I'm valuing all of those shares there. And always I like to hold both parts of this, right? Allow something to be hard and difficult and allow something to also maybe shine a little brighter in gratitude. It is one that I never want to bypass an experience that I'm having through being able to only focus on one aspect of it. That I want to be able to hold both of those experiences at the same time. And this, so much of what we're talking about right now, is this idea of paradox, holding 2 truths together at the same exact time. Yeah. No emotion is wrong. I am for that. Exactly, Nicole. That it is here. Because, Nicole, you bring up something beautifully for a moment, I may add, is like emotion. If you look at the word itself and you begin to look at the root word of emotion, it's from a Latin word, immovere. And when we go back and we translate that, what we find is that the word emotion means to move. Drop the E of emotion and we're back into that space of motion. So emotion, anything that we're feeling has a function. And that function wants to be acknowledged. So we acknowledge it and then do something with it. So there is no wrong emotion. It is the idea that every emotion is there to offer movement of some kind, to regulate in some way, to move. And so that is a way in which we begin to then take everything as right and as a message for me. Okay, it means to move. If I'm feeling tired right now, the movement may be to go slow, to pause, to take an easy part of the day if I can and when I can. So it is a balancing, a recognition of that. So thank you for putting that in there and acknowledging no emotion is wrong. No emotion is wrong. Yeah. So this idea of paradox is one that I want to show you here. And you might be familiar with this image that you see on your screen here. And that image is of an art form, a Japanese art form called kunsinki. Maybe some of you have seen this before. If you have, let me know in the chat there if you're familiar with this art form. The art form comes from 15th century Japanese shogun, makes the acknowledgement that a vase has broken. And really, yep, exactly. Oh my God, that's amazing, Lori. Look at Dominique too. Amazing. I have I have some envy. I have some envy and appreciation and so awesome. This art form has impacted me in many ways. I have many pieces. Yep, exactly. In my home with this type of artwork because people know this is resonant with me. And so this art form came about because they put together a vase that broke and they sort of Frankensteined it together. It didn't look as beautiful as it once did. And so decree goes out, artisans come together and they start creating this beautiful form of art where they take gold inlay and place it between the broken pieces. And they start mending it back together, right? And what we get is this reminder of broken and whole at the same time. Broken and whole at the same time. There are parts of us that are broken. And there are parts of us, when we put all of it together, create a whole story of who we are. I hold compassion for those broken parts that we all show up with. All of us have them. They may be labeled differently. And they're a part of our own mosaic. They're a part of who we are right now, how we show up, how we make choices, how we feel. And when we get to hold paradox, we recognize not only the broken, we also begin to hold the other parts that are equally as good too. When I play in this with people and teams and such, I think about it in this terms. And this comes from one of my teachers, Dr. Maria Serwa, who I deeply admire and is a mentor to me. The swamp in the pond is a really great way to look at this. And we're going to practice a little bit in this space right now. So if you could be so bold, and as you feel comfortable, all invitation, what would be some of the parts of your experience right now that you would identify as swamp? And swamp are the broken parts, the parts that are harder to hold, a little bit more jaggedy, a little bit more rugged. What would you say are some of the swamp parts of your experience, whatever that is for you? Yes, the fear and grief live in the swamp. We acknowledge them. They're not bad. That is their home. That is where isolation lives in the swamp. Oh my God, Jane, I didn't even realize that. That's amazing. Maria is one of the people that has inspired my life, my work. Deeply hold her close. Yeah. Future, like loneliness, fear, separation, loss of loved ones, disappointment. Yes. Leaving a relationship. That is with lots of choice and lots of struggle. I believe got you to that point. A lot of clarity too. Career change. Yeah. Naming the world as it is. Constant state of awareness, exhaustion, relationships. All of this is there. It is one truth. We could become really focused on the swamp only, right? Feeling disconnected. Again, I'm not able to name everything that's coming in, and you are normalizing through your shares. You're allowing for us to feel community by your shares and vulnerability. Thank you for all of this. Yep. Our complexity of relationship. Thank you, Judy. Yes. We could focus solely on this. This is one truth that we can really hold deeply to, and we can become all swamp. And that sometimes feels like the days we might show up in. Even for myself, on hard days where things feel difficult and heavy, I may be focusing only on one aspect. and really focus on that. Practicing paradox begins to allow for us to expand the view in some way. So if you could, in the chat, what would you say are some things that you would put in your pond? Your pond are the parts of your experience that are a little bit more clear, that are a little bit more shiny, that are a little bit more supportive, that allow for you to drink from it, that are all things that then allow for the bigger story to be told. What are some of those pond parts that we want to talk about? I notice for me energetically, as you begin to share these, I start to lighten up a little. My smile shows up. I'm strengthened. My family support. Yeah. hmm Friends, family, kids. Look at all of the relationship. Relationship, everybody, is one of the biggest factors of our resilience. Being in relationship. Scientists studied those that lived to be over 100 years of age. And one of the things that they asked about was what has gotten you to over 100 years of age? And it wasn't that they dieted and didn't do certain things or did other things. It was that they were in relationship. That was something that continued to show up, that when in relationship, people thrived better. That community aspect, once again. You know your pond parts. They are equally as there. And the encouragement is in those moments to become more resilient. We begin to add the pond into the story. We think about it as well, so that when we meet the swamp, we equally find a pond. And we then use those resources to be able to manage and swim through the muckier parts, the harder parts, because this is going to be there. So we connect the two together. So I look at life some days as swamp and pond. What is swamp, right? What is pond? How do I leverage both, right? How do I think about the bigger picture? Easier said than done, sometimes when we're on the outside of things, and a practice that we might be able to think about. And so I offer questions that do this universal ampersand. So no more buts. I avoid the word but as much as I possibly can because it leads me into the swamp. You're great, but that's a swamp moment now, right? You're great and give space for holding something else. So I use the and all the time. I do not have tattoos yet. I don't know if I will have a tattoo, yet if I did, I believe that I would get an ampersand. Like that is a reminder of holding paradox, of holding all of this. Some questions we might ask ourselves is what? What did I learn today, this week, this moment, and the hardship and the joy? What did I learn? That gets us to pond. What are my strengths? That's pond. That gets us there. Maybe I ask some how questions that build my grit as well, and thinking about how have I changed because of this? How can I leverage my strengths in a new way? How can I prepare differently for next time? All of this becomes the way in which we work with ourselves that thickens that bark, that allows for our resiliency to grow even stronger through the experiences that we have. And so we build the pond. I've talked about swamp and pond in another space before in a grief setting. And somebody came up to me afterwards and who works in ecosystems and has that knowledge of science and says, you do know that in the ecosystem, swamps and ponds have to be close by one another, that they actually don't exist without the other because the swamp is pulling from the pond all the muck, and that the pond exists because the swamp is doing its work. And they both are alive or existing because the other is there. And I didn't know that. And I thought it was fascinating to hear some of the ecosystem stuff of it all, because it highlights the need for both, that we will be in paradox as part of our work. So when we look at this definition, we think of this as something that I really appreciate. One of my, again, inspirations and teachers, Chris Peterson, speaks about in positive psychology that resilience is the ability to struggle well. It is not the absence of struggle. It is the ability to struggle well. And you notice those redwood trees have made an appearance again to remind us of that. It is being in both of it. It isn't simply in the struggle. It is simply in the well. It's not the absence. It's the both. And so when I saw this, right, for the first time, and I read that definition, I was like, that is it. That is what I really, truly believe resiliency is. It's the holding of paradox. It's the holding of both. It's struggling well. And so we do that by drawing on our pond. We do that by reminding ourselves that the pond exists and being able to be in both, doing and inviting that movement when our emotions show up of what do we do now? What do we do next? What do we get to do? As my time with you begins to draw for a close for now, I wanted to offer another moment with you that begins to think about our sense of self and what we can do in these moments to build our best. So in the chat, thank you, Jane. I received that. That is lovely, and I appreciate you. In the chat, for a moment, if you could entertain this, I want you to envision your best. Like, what does your best self look like? Who are you at your best? This could mean like I get 8 hours of sleep. I have my 3 meals a day. I'm joyful when I drive the kids to school. Whatever that may be. If in your mind, if you can think about in the chat, give me some qualities of what your best could look like. Yeah. Thanks, Sarah, for kicking it off. Thank you, Heidi. Yeah, successful at work, energetic, positive, helpful, beautiful. Empathy. One of my favorite words there you hit on. Yeah, being helpful, rested, motivated, unstoppable. Christine, that it's just like you saw, like that just hit. That was so good. Unstoppable. Whew. Yeah, finding joy in everything. Helpful. Freedom. There's such complexity to that. I feel it. Thank you. Organized, authentic, whole. Right? Holding all of it together. Playful. I saw that. Yeah, focused, useful, intentional. You know what your best is. How often do you get to experience your best? That is another great question to begin to consider. Is that when we begin to block out and know what our best is and what we intend, right? Who am I? Yeah, and Aaron, thank you for being where you are and knowing all the parts and pieces and the complexity of it. And to say, like, I'm looking at it, right? You didn't ignore it. You didn't say, I'm avoiding it. You said, I'm looking at it. That's the part I celebrate because it's this thinking about, yeah, what does my best look like? We don't always ask ourselves that question. What does my best day look like today? What does my best night's sleep look like? What does my best at work look like? What does my best as a caregiver and family member look like? If we can begin to become clear around that, we begin to have something that we begin to create toward, having a sense of direction. This is what I want. So I leave you with one of the final offerings here. All the time, Rose, worst critic right there, front row. It reminds me always, Rose, of the Muppets, those two gentlemen that sit up in and mock and make those commentaries. They live in my brain. They live in my brain always. So yes, 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 you got it. Kirk, you all the points. That was amazing. So one of the things that I think about that enables us to be resilient goes back to the trees. It goes back to the idea that there's a pattern of the way in which the redwoods show up, the patterns of how they integrate their roots, the patterns in which they build their bark. All of this is a pattern in the way in which we show up and do something. So one of the things that I want to empower you with as we think about this idea of patterns, is to look at what is your best and what patterns are you practicing that make that possible. If your best is going to sleep at 10 o'clock every night, yet your pattern is to take your phone out and scroll, maybe doom scroll, before you go to sleep at night and find yourself at 11:30 doing the same, even though your best is asleep at 10, that pattern is something to begin to think about in some way. So we think about the patterns that we have in our day to day. Resiliency is built on micro moments. It is not going to a yoga class one time and magically you're resilient. I wish it could be that way. It is about the micro moments of resiliency that we do day after day after day after day. Leah, joyful. It is thinking about those micro moments and how we create it. So the exercise that I leave you with as a practice, all practice, practice, practice makes more practice. That's what it is this idea of when I look at the patterns of my day to day, how I interact with people, how I interact with my day, how I interact with myself. What's those voices saying, critiquing around? What is it that I want to interrupt? And not only do I acknowledge that, I tell other people as well. This is what I want to interrupt. I want to interrupt my sense of being late all the time and apologizing for being late. I want to interrupt that pattern of doing that, of coming home late from work, of not being available. I want to interrupt that. So you begin to think about the pattern you want to interrupt. Equally, you then begin to think about, what do you want to protect? What do you want to protect? These two things become resources to make you stronger. What do you want to interrupt? What do you want to protect? This becomes the new way of doing and being and creating a pattern. That is a sense of resiliency. I started with trees. I'm going to end with bison. The bison are quite amazing creatures. There's a pattern that they also produce, and it's one in which they roam together, these bison. And something remarkable happens. When bison see a storm coming on, they don't anticipate. What they choose to do is to run toward the storm. They run into the storm. They don't wait for the storm to come to them. They choose bravely as a group to pattern themselves forward. Resiliency is the ability to run into the storm, knowing that you'll get through it sooner instead of anticipating for it to hit. I know that we always can't plan for uncertainties. We always can't anticipate what will be. And when we build our bark, when we become more resilient, we then are more able to run into the storm, knowing that we can go through it and be on the other side. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you, to share this time together, to be in conversation with you. I thank you, Amy, and everyone for the opportunity to be here. It's a delight.
Thank you so much, Greg. Now everyone knows why I love you so much. You're just amazing and so just so encouraging and thought-provoking too. I think we all have a lot to noodle on while we think about your talk. Thank you so much. Susan is the director of the Devereux Center for Resilient Children. She joined Devereux in 1996, and for the past 30 years has been fortunate to be part of a talented team that offers strengths-based tools for early childhood professionals and families to strengthen the resilience and social and emotional skills of young people. Her team takes great pride in offering resources that are user-friendly as well as grounded in science. In Susan's role, she promotes the national and international use of these resources through the delivery of professional development events and conference presentations nationwide. On a personal note, Susan and her husband are the proud parents of 2 children who are now young adults. She credits her professional career at Devereux and her role in studying resilience with helping her navigate some of life's most challenging moments. Susan will have the chat on for a lot of interaction again. We love that. Thank you. And I am so happy to bring you Susan D'Amico.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. I am so excited to be here. And I'm going to get my chat up. Greg, you were amazing with your chat. I'll see if that's a hard act to follow. Let me get it up. If you all want to come to the chat before I do anything else, come get chatty again and tell me what word describes how you're feeling after hearing Greg's presentation. Nice things to say about Greg. Get him going in the chat. He was superb, Jennifer. Oh my God. I think we're all on the same page. We're feeling uplifted. He set me up for success. Thank you, Greg. I am very, very grateful for you. And I hope that everything that I'm going to share with you just builds on all of the wonderful words of wisdom that Greg shared. If I could, I might rename my presentation 23 Behaviors That Build Your Bark. Imitation is the highest form of flattery, is what I'm told. So who knows? Maybe in the future we'll come up with a different title, build on each other. So again, Amy, thank you for the kind introduction. I only have 25 minutes with you all, I think, at this point, so I'm going to have to get rocking and rolling. And I am going to invite you to come to the chat And with that, I'm just going to let you know that in addition to ponds and swamps and building your bark, I'm also going to use imagery and visuals to help you really hang your hat onto some things that you're going to leave with to help you understand the ordinary magic of resilience. There are so many things we can do to help get us out of the swamp towards the pond. And Devereux created a tool to help us do that, to put a framework around it. So my first new image for you, and you can't see it with the virtual background, would be like a rubber band. You can see it if I lean in. A very, very easy to understand definition of resilience is life is going to pull on us. Life is going to stretch us. And when we understand the power of resilience, we learn how to bounce back. We learn how to buffer ourselves from some of the things in the swamp. And that is the most basic definition. We're all going to get pulled. We're all going to get stretched. And, not but, I love the ampersand, and we are going to learn how to lean into what resilience science calls protective factors, the things in the pond. And in some other imagery, think about it this way too. When life throws you horrible storms, because it does, the risk factors, the adversities, the traumas, and I know we could put them in the chat. Resilience doesn't say that we ignore them. If you want to come to the chat and say, Susan, these are the risk factors that I am confronting, we don't want to ignore them. Resilience is not about being toxically positive. It's saying, yes, life is going to bring us storms. There's going to be adversity. There's going to be challenges. And I am going to lean into my protective factors, the things that buffer me from the storm. We don't go out into the rain and just let ourselves get drenching wet, right? We figure out how we're going to buffer. And that is really what the science of resilience says. You can think about it like a scale. There are some times when the risk factors feel like they're outweighing the protective factors, and this scale of life is going to tilt towards vulnerability. And when we know better, we do better. And when we listen to Greg, when we come to conferences like this, and we learn about the power of protective factors, we can start to tip the scale towards a more resilient outcome. Resilience is not something that you have or you don't have. We all are born with the capacity to build these protective factor resilience muscles. These protective factors are all around us. I would say all of us today are environmental protective factors, coming together to create community, to figure out how to be the best parents we can be when days are so hard, or the best caregivers, the best daughters for those of you that said you're struggling with parents with Alzheimer's, for those of us that are struggling with parents who are aging and young adult children whose problems seem bigger when they were younger. These protective factors are all around us. That's right. Maya Angelou says it. When we know better, we do better. And you know what? Every day is a chance to know better and do better. And when your head hits the pillow and you think, maybe I didn't lean into those protective factors as much as I should, we can give ourselves another chance the next day. We give ourselves grace, we say kind things to ourselves, and we move forward. All of these areas of protective factors are important around us in our environments, leaning into our colleagues. If you have a mentor or a team that really has your back, they are your environmental protective factors. If you have someone in your family that you just love and can count on, they are your family protective factors. And the exciting tool that Devereux created called the Devereux Adult Resilience Survey, which is in the resources tab. I hope you will go get it at the next break or before this conference ends today. We have a tool with 23 behaviors that the science of resilience says when we start to really think about these 23 things within each one of us, skills and habits that we can cultivate, we will tip the scale towards resilience. The 23 items that I'm going to talk to you about are behaviors, thoughts, and actions that we can take. They're 100% within our control as long as we start to think about them with great intention. Okay? So we're going to tip the scale towards resilience, and we're going to try and keep doing it every single day, because now that we know better, we're going to do better. Okay, so let's get started. Again, we're not going to have time to go through all 23 behaviors, but what we are going to do is look at the categories that these 23 behaviors fall into. This is not just the categories that Devereux selected. This is very consistent amongst resilience researchers. not just nationally, but internationally. And Greg already talked about these. We are not meant to be on this planet alone. We have to have healthy relationships. And we're going to talk even more about that than Greg already did. We have to have an attitude of initiative, that we don't just let the storms come. We come up with ways that we are going to take action in life, make positive decisions, and act on them. This category of internal beliefs, when I look in the mirror and I say, you know what? You've got this. You're a good person. You're trying your best. When you know better, you learn better. We need to have positive self-talk. And sometimes that's hard for people. I do a lot of trainings and it's really weighs on me when I see some of the people coming into the chat and say, you know what, that isn't how I feel about myself. I wouldn't talk to anyone else the way I talk to myself. That is a habit we need to change. That is a behavior, a habit, a thought that we all have the ability to change, because when we know better, we do better. And as Greg said, we have to learn to express these emotions. We can be really frustrated, really overwhelmed, really sad, really disgusted with the state of whatever we might be going through. And we have to learn how to handle these emotions in healthy ways. And that's what this tool is designed to do for us. So let's just dive right in. And I'm going to actually ask you in just a second to maybe not come to the chat. I'm actually going to ask you to get your cell phone out, believe it or not. I want you to get your cell phone out with me. I'm sure you all have them. I'm usually a big advocate for putting them down and getting them out of our lives. But I'm going to invite you to do something. Look at this quote on the screen with me. Relationships are the agents of change, and the most powerful therapy is human love. I love this quote. It's from Dr. Bruce Perry. Put a thumbs up in the chat if you've ever heard of Dr. Bruce Perry. You might know about this awesome book that he wrote with Oprah Winfrey called What Happened to You? Not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. And we're going to put a link in the chat. Thank you very much. I know it's a great book. Come to the chat and tell me if you've read the book or that you're going to be committed to finding the book. I promise you, you are going to love this book. Dr. Bruce Perry is a world-renowned psychiatrist who deals with some children and families who've been through the worst traumas we can imagine, the things that we see on the nightly news. And with all his evidence-based therapies, at the end of the day, what does he say is the most powerful therapy? Human love. We all know it's true. Just showing up and making sure the people in your life, you don't have to have 100 different friends or family members or thousands of Facebook followers, but you do need to have a couple people in your life who you are in it together. So I want you to get up your phone, and for the next minute, I want you to text somebody. I want you to text somebody you love and say, I'm in this training, and I just wanted to let you know I love you, or I appreciate, or send a thank you. You should start to make this a habit. Start to say thank you to people that you appreciate and love. Don't take them for granted. So I'm going to stop talking for a second. Oh, Erica already did it 10 minutes ago. Thank you, Erica. Guess what I did this morning? I went to the post office and I mailed 10 Valentine cards to girlfriends. And I said, this Valentine's Day, I am celebrating friendship. And I put an old-fashioned note. I went to Target. I got them for super cheap. And they are adorable. And I was feeling so good about myself this morning because I knew I was the person who was putting an old-fashioned, I value our friendship. And these friends went from childhood friends to one of my mom's friends. When my mom was dying, this woman who sent my father a note every single Friday. Every single Friday, he received a note for 1 year from this friend. She was on my list, right? Do not take advantage of, or don't miss the opportunity to say thank you to people, okay? All right, I wish I had more time, but I got to keep rocking and rolling. I have 15 minutes left. So relationships is one. Internal beliefs is the second. We define it as the feelings and thoughts that we have about ourselves and our lives and how effective we think we are at taking action in life. Again, big picture, be kind to yourself. Get rid of that negative self-talk. When you look at the items, and again, I don't have time to go through them all, but this tool is asking us to reflect on behaviors and thoughts like, I recognize that my role as a caregiver is important. I hope we would all put an almost always if we are caring for a loved one. I have personal strengths. Taking the time to slow down and think, what are my strengths? I might always be thinking about what my limitations are or what I'd like to do better, but what are my strengths? How am I creative? Do I have strong beliefs? Am I hopeful about the future, and am I lovable? Again, if you have any of these items that you think, you know what, I don't feel hopeful about the future, I don't feel that lovable right now, then we need to put plans in place and strategies in place to do something about it. Just choose one or two of these that might not be in the somewhat or almost always category and think about, what can I do differently? We have great suggestions for what you can do differently on our website at the Devereux Center for Resilient Children. There are fabulous resources, including one of my favorites that I know my friend Debbie's going to pop into the chat because I love talking about them, the Greater Good Science Center. If you have a not yet on any item on the Devereux Adult Resilience Survey and you need a strategy suggestion, you're going to go either to our website at the Center for Resilient Children and see all the awesome videos and tools we have, or I invite you to go to the Greater Good Science Center. Their mission is to help all of us live lives that are more peaceful, resilient, balanced, and fulfilled. And it is the best scientists from across the world. And the mission of this place, thank you very much, Debbie, she's one of my protective factors, is to take all of that science and translate it into easy to understand, fun to read, fun to watch articles, videos, and activities. So if you want to do better on any of these, it's my favorite go-to place to go. And I do want to just piggyback on something that Greg said. What's one of the strategies about being hopeful for the future? It's leaning into gratitude. So I want you to look at this image on your screen, this beautiful quote. A lot of us think, well, if better things happen to me, Susan, I'd be more grateful. But it's not true. If we start to lean into the smallest things to be grateful for, we will be more joyful. So please come to the chat and tell me, what is the smallest thing that you are grateful for right now? You having a good hair day? If you are, you should be grateful. Heat, right? It is your slippers, your comfy slippers. I am sitting on a cozy work chair that I love. But you want to know what I'm most grateful right now? My dog is not barking. And let me tell you, it was a worry. It was a concern. Look at them all. The most basic. We can be grateful for the big things, but I want us to be grateful for the small things. Oh my gosh, Judy, congratulations. Your house is paid off. That is amazing. Your knee doesn't hurt. I hear you. It's awesome. Everyone that still has power up in the Northeast, I'm joining you from Florida. Everyone's complaining about being cold down here. It's gorgeous. All right, no car bill. I love it. Thank you. When you are grateful for the smallest things, it brings us more joy. It's tricking our brains. It's an awesome hack. Okay, so we just need to lean into being more grateful for small things. And I can't help myself. I added a little video. I'm going to show you two videos. I added one because when I was listening to Greg, I thought, I want to play this lady. So this is a woman who's going to talk to us about gratitude. So sit back and enjoy this for a minute. You can come visit. I would love it.
Note to self, sometimes life sucks, but when you practice gratitude amidst the suck, it gives you the strength to keep going. Here's something I want you to know about your brain. It has what's called a negativity bias. We all have it. It simply means that our brains are much more sensitive to anything that is negative than anything that is good or positive. And we remember negative things more. And when things are uncertain in our lives, we tend to think of the negative outcome, of the worst possible outcome. It is not your fault. It's just the negativity bias at play. And it is why it is so important to practice gratitude. When you practice gratitude, when you actually pause to notice the small good moments in your day, the things that bring you joy or just your daily comforts, and you honor them with your deep appreciation and your attention, you remind your brain that of course there are things that are challenging. Of course there are things that could go wrong, but there are also things that are good. There are things that are kind and meaningful and joyful in your life. And when you do that, it boosts your mood, which is awesome, but it also gives you the strength the actual resilience to keep going through all the hard things that we all experience in our lives. Gratitude has this magic power of balancing out your brain's negativity bias so that you have a more fair picture of your life and you're not so drained by your brain's constant focus on everything that is negative. So I really encourage you to make gratitude a daily practice. And the one thing I want to offer you is when you practice gratitude, be specific. So instead of saying something like, I am grateful for my family, be specific and think of why. Why am I grateful for my family? Why am I grateful for my health? Why am I grateful for this day? The more specific you can be, the better your brain will be able to capture and appreciate that goodness, that moment, the more gratitude you will feel, and the more strength you will have to get through whatever challenges are in your way.
Okay, before we move on to initiative, come to the chat and tell me, do you do any gratitude practices already? If you do, say yes I do, or no, 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 no. I want to know if you're doing them. A friend of mine, a colleague, a researcher, told me about a really easy one. It's called gratitude on cue. He said, Susan, every morning when you wake up, you need a cue. Something that happens every morning. And for 1 minute, just let your brain think about what it's grateful for. So that dog that's still not barking, every morning when my leash and collar are connected, I say to myself, Susan, the only thing you're allowed to think about for 1 minute is what you're grateful for. You're not allowed to start your day thinking about what's on your to-do list. What are you worried about with your family? What are all the concerns you have? For 1 minute, my cue. My cue is my dog Paisley with the leash and the collar. You can have your own cue. It doesn't take you very long. You don't need a journal beside your bed, although if you have one, kudos to you. It's just super, super easy and small and quick. And it's a good sort of way to get started for those of us that just need a little way to get started. So that's one of my tips. Gratitude on cue. Find a cue, whether it's your coffee, whatever it might be. Okay? All right. Initiative. These are the items on initiative. And if I had more time, I would love to talk to you about every single one of these items. These behaviors that are related to taking action in positive ways. Thinking about how effectively you're communicating with other people. Do you try different ways to solve a problem? Do you take time to make sure you engage in a hobby? Are you a lifelong learner? Are you seeking out new knowledge? I hope you're going to go to the Greater Good Science Center. I really, really hope that I've convinced you that that's one way to seek out new knowledge about resilience. Being open to new ideas. How about number 6? Laughing often. I have to say, I've been doing this work for a long time, and I'm so grateful to Devereux that this is what I get to do for a living. But I often find that every time I do the Devereux Adult Resilience Survey, I'm not laughing as often as I wish I was. I do regret that. So that's something I need to keep. It's a muscle I got to keep working. You got to think about it so that you build that into your day. Being able to say no, having healthy boundaries. And this last one, I can ask for help. So many people think asking for help feels like a weakness, like I can't do it myself. The science of resilience says asking for help is a protective factor. And how many people, when you do ask them for help, if somebody asks you for help, are you usually, if you can, you're happy to help them? Come to the chat. If somebody asks you for help, do you think it's a sign of weakness? It is not. It is a protective factor. We are not meant to do all these hard things by ourselves. It's brave. It is brave to ask for help. And it's brave to ask for help if you are listening right now and feeling anxious or depressed and you think, I need help with my mental health. That is brave. That is brave. And I hope that we're giving you more confidence if any of you feel that way. And there are resources to get help in the resource section that we have put together for you. So I hope you will go to that section. All right. There's one last category called self-control. That ability to experience a range of feelings and express them using words and actions that society considers appropriate. It is important to acknowledge the swampy feelings, using Greg's terminology. We have to own them, acknowledge them, not bury them, and we have to find healthy ways to deal with them. One of my healthy ways is looking at this picture. I love the beach. Come to the chat and tell me where you would go. Where's a place of refuge for you? Where is a place when you're having negative feelings, you feel like I can go there and I feel a little bit more regulated? Thank you, Cheryl. The beach, usually a lot of people go outside, right? Everyone's going outside, 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 even to your backyard. Sometimes people will say, I love it, Erin, your bathroom, your bedroom. Often for many of us, there's more than one place. How fortunate are we? How grateful we are if we have more than one place to be able to go, especially when it's freezing cold outside, if we can stay inside and snuggle up. Thinking about where is my place to gather my self-control. The items that you would answer, being able to express your emotions, setting limits for yourself, being flexible, and being able to calm down. Okay. Again, for any of these, you might be feeling like I might have several not yets on some of these. Just start with one or two. Just start with one. Just start. Take some initiative. And as much as I'm sort of anti-phones, I tell you what, this AI, for one of the things it's really great with, if you have a question or you want a good strategy or you want to know the science behind any of these things, the answers are at your fingertips, right? We all have access to them, and that is a beautiful thing. Okay. So I want you to come to the chat. When you think about your feelings, all feelings are welcome. Feelings are visitors. I want you to look at this beautiful feelings wheel with me. And I would like you to look at it for a minute. And I'd like you to, after you've really spent a minute looking at it, come to the chat and share how you're feeling. And I want to challenge you to acknowledge that we can have two strong feelings coexisting, that and. You might be feeling overwhelmed and excited. Learning something new, being part of this day today. I'm not sure, I thought it's just been fabulous. We've worked together as a team. It's coming across so great. So I might be thinking, well, I've got a couple different feelings going on here. It's important to acknowledge that really different feelings can exist at the same time. I'm already forgetting how many feelings Greg said we can have in a day, but we can probably have way more than two, right? I can't remember how many it was. Thank you for coming to the chat. 527. Look at your good listeners, Greg. Got good listeners. Yeah. Thank you for being so honest. Sometimes getting those feelings out of our heads and into the universe, into a chat like this, it's therapeutic. It feels good. Get them out. Feels good. Don't bottle it up inside. Feel wheels are all over the place. You can Google them and print them out. This is my favorite one. I really love pretty colors, but there's also ones that have real muted colors. So think about the kind of feelings wheel that you might want to have. So I'm going to leave you with a quick video that my colleagues created. I want to invite you to sit back and relax, and then my time is probably going to be up, so there's not going to be time for questions and answers. I thought there might be, but I just want you to remember that how you are is as important as what you do. Whether you're here today as a parent, a teacher, a caregiver, in any capacity, how you are, your resilience, your protective factors, the health of your relationships, your internal beliefs, all of those things are as important as whatever title or role you play. So I invite you to get the resources, the Building Your Bounce, Devereux Adult Resilience Survey, and I'm just going to ask you to sit back and relax and enjoy this lovely message that my colleagues created for us.
We invite you to center resilience with us. Resilience is not the only answer when facing hard things, but it can provide grounding and a foundation for the work that lays ahead. Centering resilience reminds us that we cannot give what we do not have, and thus we must start on the inside and work our way out. Knowing that resilience lives in the ordinary and small moments strikes us as an extremely realistic place to start when confronting adversity. Resilience research reveals time and again that those who have overcome serious tragedies almost always attribute their resilience to ordinary rather than extraordinary processes. At the Devereux Center for Resilient Children, we focus on building the protective factors of healthy relationships, initiative, self-regulation, and internal beliefs to foster resilience in children and adults. These protective factors are best nurtured in ordinary ways. Remembering that we belong to each other helps us center relationships so that we may extend warm wishes to a stranger. Remembering that no act of kindness is too small helps us center initiative so that we can take one tiny step toward bettering the world. Remembering that feelings are visitors helps us center self-regulation so that we can start talking about feelings in our daily conversations. Remembering that they are all our children helps us center healthy internal beliefs so that we can unite in a common vision for a better future. What is the smallest thing you can do today to nurture a relationship, or to grow a sense of initiative, or to enhance emotional coping skills, or to celebrate your beliefs and values? Finding an answer to just one of these questions will create some much-needed resilience momentum. Once we start to feel this shift, we can do more small and ordinary things to help us feel more connected and better able to cope. We are grateful to each of you for your commitment to children, families, each other, and resilience.
Thank you, Amy. And I just want to say, somebody came into the chat and said they couldn't see the video. Go to the resource tab, grab the handout. You will have access to the Center for Resilient Children website, where that video and a lot of other amazing videos are all available for you to watch. So thank you. Sorry you couldn't see it, but you'll be able to grab it.
Thank you, Susan. Thanks so much. I love the DARs. Definitely grab it in our resource section. I would also be remiss if I didn't remind you that we have a help guide in the resource section, which again, you can access at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. And we have that there because we know that you're all joining us from different emotional places today. And some of you might be having a really hard time. If you're experiencing a personal crisis, please check our help guide for 6 tips on what to do if you're in a crisis. We're also going to put it in the chat box, and we have Greg's PDF from his presentation that will be in the resource tab, and I think we'll be able to put in the chat box along with the DARs. So we're trying to make this easy for you to find things. All right, so I'm going to switch my hat now to my mother hat, and I'm going to be speaking on the lived experience panel. And I'm very excited to introduce you to Amy Ashman. She's our National Director of Communications. I've been able to work with Amy for the last 10 years that she's been at Devereux, and she's just a delight to work with. So I'll turn it over to Amy. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Amy. And thank you all for taking time out of your incredibly busy days, no matter what your situation is, to be with us and to learn a little bit more about resilience and to try and find more tools for your tool belt. As Amy said, my name is Amy Ashman. I'm Devereux's National Director of Communications. I'll be moderating today's panel focused on family resilience. So I just want to share that at Devereux, we completely recognize that every family's journey is different, and that resilience and joy and happiness can coexist with fatigue, anxiety, uncertainty, and for all of those 527 emotions that Greg mentioned earlier. This panel will focus on our families' lived experiences, along with their ability to adapt, endure, and grow. So let's welcome our panelists. First up is Clay Armbrister, a Devereux National Trustee since 2013, recently serving as our chair of our board. Clay has held executive positions in law, government, and finance, including leadership roles at Johns Hopkins University, Girard College, Temple University, and Johnson C. Smith University. Clay is also a Devereux family member. His son, Dennis, has been supported by Devereux since 1997. Next is Lori DeMoon, who has been a member of Devereux's Family Advisory Board since 2019 and a member of Devereux's Sibling Engagement Committee since 2020. Lori was instrumental in helping plan today's event. Thank you, Lori. She is a former theater professional and is now a farmer in rural Wisconsin. Lori's grandmother, this is a very interesting fact, Lori's grandmother was a public school teacher alongside our founder, Helena Devereux, in the 1920s, and her family were among the original supporters of the first Devereux school. Lori is also a Devereux family member. Her twin sister, Lisa, has been supported by Devereux for 11 years, and Lori is Lisa's primary guardian. Our next panelist is James Schwab, who has been a Devereux National Trustee since 2001 and is the co-chair of Devereux's Family Advisory Board. James is the former chair of the Media and Entertainment Group at Paul Weiss and former vice president at Time Warner, senior vice president at NBC, and president at Vice Media. Most recently, James has been a senior advisor to the Ray and Barbara Dalio Family Office. He's also a co-founder of Autism Speaks and served on the Duke University Institute for Brain Science Advisory Board. James and his wife, Kim, have 3 children and 1 grandchild. Their son, Jackson, has been supported by Devereux for over 25 years across a continuum of services, including educational, residential, and day hab programs. Next up is Jane Taylor, a visual artist and painter who has been a Devereux National Trustee since 2017. Jane is also the co-chair of our Family Advisory Board and also serves as co-chair of our Sibling Engagement Committee. Jane's brother, Johnny, began residing at one of our Devereux centers in the 1960s, where he lived and thrived until he passed away in 2010. Thanks for being here, Jane. Finally, Amy Kelly, who you've all met. Amy is Devereux's National Director of Family Engagement. Every day, Amy is out there helping guide our families to obtain the services they need for their loved ones. She's also a family advisor for the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and the American Academy of Pediatrics. Amy is also a Devereux family member. Her daughter, Annie, has been supported by Devereux since 2007. So to set the stage for this discussion, I'd like our attendees watching today to get to know our panelists a little bit. So I'm going to prompt each of you just to share some high-level information about your families. Clay, tell us about your family, your son Dennis, and your caregiving journey.
Thanks, Amy, and good afternoon, everyone. Great to be here and great to see so many people participating in today's event. Dennis was born in January of 1988, which makes him 38 years old. And he started at Devereux at 9 years old. Dennis is our third child, was my ex-wife and I's third child. But he was not the first child that we had who was on the spectrum. And our firstborn, who was about 5 years older than Dennis, was the first child on the spectrum. So when you hear me talk today, you'll hear me talk about many experiences about our journey. And it's hard to talk about Dennis without talking about his brother because that changed our experience in somewhat. But in some respects, because he was our second child on the spectrum, we were a little bit more attuned to the things that resulted in his diagnosis and probably a little bit more proactive. If you think about what was going on, his older brother is now 43 years old. It was very, very challenging for us. You know, our first child as new parents and not knowing what was going on. So that was a bit of a challenge. And unlike Dennis, and we'll talk a little bit about him later on, his brother is a lot more high functioning. Dennis is nonverbal and requires significant support where David didn't. So they had different paths. And the path that took us to Devereux is that we realized very early on that the path for Dennis was going to be different from his brother because of his limited ability to communicate. And then we sought out additional services where David was educated through the Philadelphia public school system. At about 9th grade, we turned to Devereux. And we'll talk about that journey a little bit more. But great to be here. I'm looking forward to speaking with everyone a little bit later.
Thanks so much, Clay. Lori, tell us about your family and your sister, Lisa.
So my sister and I are twins. We were born the last day of the 1960s. And the doctor didn't believe my mother that she was having twins. She was sure. He said she was wrong. So he came too late to the birth. We should have been born C-section like most twins are. But instead, we were both born breech. And the cord was wrapped around my sister's neck. And so she lost oxygen to her brain. She does not have a specific genetic disease or diagnosis except for permanent brain damage. She has a lower IQ. She had a speech impediment, which she had many years of tutoring. And the frontal lobe damage she has to her brain impairs her decision-making ability. So about 12 years ago, my father went in for routine surgery and there were complications and he passed away a couple months later. My mother also declined very quickly at the same time. She had horrible rheumatoid arthritis and she died within a year. But the thing was, my parents did not make plans for the transition for my sister. They did not believe in charity. So, as an adult, my sister received no services from the state government. Um, and that made it hard to look for those supports after they passed away. I had to help my sister make the decision of what she wanted next for her life. And she always wanted to live in a group home. That was her idea of independent living. And so I helped her make that decision. We found Devereux. Within 2 months of our crisis, she moved into her home. She lives there with 3 other wonderful women. It's a gorgeous home, and that's her forever home. And she's been there for 11 years now.
Wow. Thanks so much for sharing, Lori. James, tell us about your family, Jackson, your journey as a parent and caregiver.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. This is a remarkable undertaking, a remarkable turnout. So we're really grateful to have so many folks participate and such great speakers to join us and guide us today. So we have 3 kids. Jackson's our middle, and he has an older brother who's 2 years older. He's got a sister who's 10 years younger. She was kind of, after we thought we had things under control and figured out to support Jackson, we decided to have another child. And so she grew up with her big little brother in some ways, and she was always the little big sister. She was able to grow up and take cues from her folks about being a caregiver. But I think it's important context, not knowing the ages of folks on the Zoom today. Back in the early mid 90s, we didn't have the internet, at least not for commercial use. There weren't as many services. There wasn't as much discussion, knowledge, focus, attention. This was autism was a 1 in 10,000 kind of diagnosis at the time. So it was a very different world, and there was you were going through the labyrinth, I think was a phrase that somebody used, and it was really hard. And so finding your community, being thankful for the relationships that you have, the family, hopefully a great partner to go through these things with. And then finding an organization, and again, like we found Devereux as a bunch of parents who knew we wanted a school. There were no schools in our area, Westchester County, New York. There were no specialized schools back then. In the Northeast, it was like the Alpine School in New Jersey and Princeton PCDI, but very few others. And so we knew we wanted a school, and very, a strong view about ratios and kind of teaching. But we knew we couldn't run a school, and needed a partner to do that. And Devereux became the partner, and that really began our journey with Devereux. And we're so thankful. And for folks who don't know the organization, we had somebody who recently passed away and had been with Devereux for 70 years. And I think about my son, and he's likely to be supported by Devereux for almost all of his life, except for 8 years. It's quite remarkable. Amazing organization. Thank you all for the work that you do.
Amen.
Thanks so much, James. And Jane, tell us about Johnny. Tell us about your family.
Well, I'll take this back way before the 90s, and that my brother was born in 1954. And to the best of my knowledge, he was diagnosed when he was about 4 years old. He came to live on a Devereux campus in, I think, 1963 or 1964. And as you already said, Amy, he lived there until his death in 2010. Johnny was charming. He was funny. He was unexpectedly wise at times, and he could be a real pain. Very obsessed about things. And that's when things would start to spin out of control because there was never a good way to address that. My dad used to call him the man of iron whim, and that could cause problems where, well, we'll talk more about how that got handled. But so, we loved him terribly or wonderfully. But it took a lot of family effort and coordination when he was at home. And we're very thankful that Devereux came into our lives.
Thanks. Thanks, Jane. And finally, Amy, tell us about Annie. I'm so glad that I actually know Annie. It makes my heart happy.
She says Amy Ashman all the time at home. So yeah, I'm the mom of 3 young adults now. Danny, the oldest, who's 25, Annie, who's 24, and Ryan, who's 22. And I had all my kids really close together. So I was a very busy young mom. Didn't know what autism was. And much like James, for us, when Annie was diagnosed, it was 1 in 256. So it's felt very, I'll say, rare. Annie was diagnosed 3 weeks before Ryan was born, my youngest. So it was an incredibly hard time, very isolating, very emotional. And I was just so overwhelmed. I remember being so overwhelmed. And it was pretty rocky for a few years while I was trying to get a handle of what to do. But when she became school age, we found Devereux, and that absolutely was life-changing for us. Annie was able to go to school there and now is in a day program here and likely will, live there after she moves out of her childhood home. So we're so grateful for Devereux as well.
Great. Well, thank you all for sharing that very personal information. And I think we can dive into our questions now. So this first question I'd like to start with our parents, James, Clay, and Amy. If I could take you back to when your children were first diagnosed, what was it like to hear that diagnosis? And what was the first thing you did after hearing that diagnosis? James, I'd like to start with you.
Well, the first thing, we cried a great deal. You have your suspicions, concerns, for months leading up to the formal diagnosis. But there's always, someone's third cousin removed didn't talk till they were 4, so everything's going to be okay, and you always hope for the best, and then you get the diagnosis, and the range of emotions is obviously just about everything humans can experience, from sadness and anger to loss to mourning to you name it. But I think we realized pretty quickly we had to change our thinking, we had to change our behavior, we had to get to work, to take action. Everyone's wired differently, right? So there's not going to be one answer for any one individual or any one family. So people will hear lived experiences, but your experience is your own, and just because somebody handled a situation in a certain way doesn't mean that's the only way or the right way. But from our family, we knew we had a lot to learn, and we had a lot to do, and I guess Kim and I kind of divided the world up. She ended up figuring out how to build a clinic in our basement because, again, there was not a lot of services available. And, aside from my other day job, I knew at some point our son was going to need a school. And so we just divided the world, and I focused on, starting nonprofits and getting a school going. And Kim really focused on pulling together an amazing team to work with Jackson in our home. And that was really the first steps that we took, was to just do something.
Yeah, and to kind of follow up on that, James, as I'd mentioned earlier, Dennis is our third child. My oldest, David, was born, and we noticed the developmental delays in him, and ultimately he was diagnosed. Our second child, Nicole, is fine, And then after Dennis was born, and we started to notice, very similar delays that David had. And then when we got the diagnosis, it was like getting hit by lightning, striking twice. It was kind of unbelievable and believable at the same time. It's like, wow, is this really possible? And interestingly, we were, I won't say cursed and blessed, but the fact that we had knowledge, and I think it was interesting, in the last panel, somebody said, when we know better, we do better. So we had the experience, the lived experience of having to try to identify opportunities for David. And for many respects, we went down that same path. We were able to find resources in the local school district, and quite frankly, based on the limited research that was available, David was born 1983. I was a young lawyer. I wouldn't even finished my first year of practice in law, so I was kind of balancing that. And so there weren't a lot of resources, and we finally found an early intervention program, and we were able to do very similar things with Dennis. And we followed pretty much a similar path after the diagnosis, but realized fairly early on that Dennis's disabilities were much more severe than David's. And that became clear when school started. Although David had great resources in his school, Dennis was kind of following the same path, but those resources weren't really attuned to what his needs were. And then it probably took us a little longer than maybe it should have, but by the time he was about 8, what he would normally be about third grade, we started looking for alternatives to the Philadelphia school district. And we're able to get a referral to Devereux that really kind of changed Dennis's life in terms of putting him on a trajectory that he could, fulfill his own his own needs. And so that's what happened with him. And our first emotion was when we found out that Dennis was also on the spectrum, was that, boy, we can't believe that lightning struck twice in the same place. We were kind of flabbergasted, but we were able to find Devereux, and Devereux's just been an amazing partner throughout his life. And like James, Devereux will probably be a part of Dennis's life until I'm no longer here.
I'll tag on to what you were saying, Clay, too. And I want to, for the audience, preface that all of our children are older now. Well, first, you can see how much we love Devereux. First of all, it's life-changing, right? We're not here to advertise Devereux. However, we just love it because it was life-changing for us. But I want to preface by saying our kids are all older. And I think because there was so much less known about autism then, that it was a really frightening diagnosis. The other thing is it was the more profound kids that got diagnosed that early. I will tell you, a lot of the families I'm privileged to work with at Devereux who go through a diagnosis of autism or whatever it is with their kids, ADHD, anxiety, many of them are so relieved to put a name to that thing that's been, challenging their family. So, while I also was devastated, mine was, it was because I didn't know anything about it. But there were 4 books about autism out at the time when Annie was diagnosed. It's so different now, and people are so much more aware that I feel like it shouldn't be seen as a very sad thing. It's a hard road, and you have to be a good advocate. But there's a lot of potential and lot of great things that are in your child's future. So for those of you out there who are going through this now, please don't be discouraged.
Thank you all. And I want to turn to Jane and Lori, because as siblings, I'm sure that your experience was very different. So starting with Jane, what was it like growing up with Lisa and watching your parents try and find the right supports for Johnny?
Well, I was pretty young when they started looking for supports. Johnny's just 14, or was just 14 months younger than I am, and 2 years older than my sister. And so he initially, by the way, Lori, I didn't know that about your sister, it was the same situation. The cord was around his neck twice, and he was oxygen deprived at birth. Um, and he was able to he was very verbal. He could go to kindergarten with my sister. But when it came to go on to first grade, there was just no way. So my parents initially found some private kindergartens that he could attend. They were not geared to special needs at all. I don't think that existed then. And one thing I do remember vaguely is being in the car when Mom picked Johnny up from the last possible local school that he could attend and finding out that he couldn't come back. They just did not have what was needed to support him. And, again, it's vague memories. I was, maybe in second grade at that time. Um, but sensing, a combination of fear and anxiety and anger and frustration and just not knowing what to do. I have no idea how they found Devereux, but they did, and that's where Johnny went. And for me, it was a confusing thing, I mean, I think I was aware enough that Johnny was different, but it had been working and everything was fine. And he was going to school just like we were. And, why did he have to go live somewhere else? And would that ever happen to us? I think, my parents, it was kind of the tagline, we want the best school for each of our children, and Johnny is special, so he needs a special school. But, that's kind of abstract, I think, for a young kid. So anyway, that's what that experience was like.
Yeah, so growing up about a decade later, in the early 70s, my sister was fortunate to go to the Easter Seals program for nursery school, and that was great. It helped build her muscles up, and it was a great group of people that focused on what kids needed. And then she went to public school, and my mother's background was public school teacher, and my grandmother and all their family, and my mother believed in public school. And my mother, I think, became the advocate, the team member that every teacher loved, that school administrators loved, because she said, I want to support this. And luckily, in the mid 70s, the Department of Education was formed that was an advocate for rights for kids. And my sister was moved into a different elementary school every year growing up because they all had to take turns taking those kids. And they would empty out a closet and stick those kids in there. And my mom said, no more. This is too hard. It would be too hard for a mainstream kid. It's too hard for a special needs kid. And I remember her going to school board meetings all the time. I can still remember the smell of her perfume she wore. And she became an advocate on the state level as well. So she got laws changed in the state of Pennsylvania that there are certain standards that must be met. And they still exist today. And I'm thankful that my parents just saw it as something they had to get done. There was not a lot of moaning and complaining in our house. It was just what's next on the to-do list. And that's how it was treated.
Wow.
God bless your mom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think whether you're a parent, sibling, or guardian, whatever your situation is, it just has to be so overwhelming to try and navigate the systems of care, the funding, the supports, not to mention managing the everyday needs of your loved one. And as part of that, I'm sure that each of you have had your share of challenging or difficult moments. I'd like to start with Jane here. Would you be willing to share one of the more emotionally challenging times you experienced? We know that all of the people, many of the people who are calling, watching today are experiencing some significant emotions. And I was just wondering if you could share one of those challenging times. What happened and what helped you get through it?
When I started thinking about this, I thought there were so many. How am I going to pick one? And there was one that stood out as not the most intense emotional time, but a broader swath of time. And it happened quite late in Johnny's life. And it was when My John, he never, when Lori, when you said that Devereux became your sister's forever home, Johnny was very happy at Devereux and frequently wanted to go back earlier than he was scheduled to when he was home on vacation, but he never considered it home. And his definition of home was always wherever my parents lived. And my mother had died. They had moved up from Savannah to be closer to Johnny once Johnny could no longer travel, and it was too much for Dad to drive up and get him to bring him home. And my mother died. My father was still there, and so we'd bring him to Dad's apartment in New Jersey and have our holidays there. And Dad met another woman after Mom died, and very abruptly moved back to Savannah. And Holly and I became the primary caretakers. Holly's my sister. We were happy to do that for him. He was in his 80s. It was time. What was so difficult was that we had never discussed this transition, and it happened, as I said, very quickly. And yeah, Holly and I were just not equipped to deal with it. Thank goodness Johnny did not outlive Dad, so that because we really didn't even know how to negotiate things with Devereux or the funding and that sort of thing. But we didn't have to deal with that yet. The big problem was, how did we bring him on home visits? Neither one of us he was in a wheelchair. Neither one of us had first floor bathrooms and bedrooms. We couldn't and then we also lived quite far away. I was 4 hours away and Holly was 3 hours away. And what we started doing is, going down there and taking him to a residence inn, because we could have his 2 adjoining rooms and a little kitchen. And the first time we did that, it was so weird and so painful. And I know Holly and I were both feeling really lost. And Johnny looked at me. He used to call me Jan, which is another story. But anyway, he looked at me and he said, "Jan, where do I live?"
Oh.
And I'm going to get all choked up. It was probably one of the most heartbreaking moments of my life. And the way I know Holly was feeling the same way. And the way we dealt with it, so I'll give her a shout out. I could not have gotten through that time without her. We just got our forces together and said, figured out what action we could take. And, what are we going to do? We looked for, houses and condos in the Philadelphia area. Nothing was quite right with us financially. Anyway, we tried so many things. And, eventually I decided that my husband and I would put an addition on our house, and it was far away, but we would make that work with a handicap bathroom. And one of my great regrets is that before we never told Johnny that, because anticipation was an awful thing for him. And before we broke ground, he passed away. So he never knew. And, it's more the aftermath of that, which clearly I'm still dealing with. A certain amount of guilt that I didn't take the initiative to talk about things, that, this situation occurred at all. And I guess what keeps me going is, for one, I think a lot of this has to do with why I jumped in with both feet after Dad passed away and being involved with Devereux. And again, it was having my sister that we could share things with and talk to each other about it, and do some fun things too together, which we were very good at doing. So that was the hardest.
We're lucky to have you, Jane.
Yeah, we are.
Thank you.
We are. Wow, Jane, that's a tough one to follow. Dennis, because he's nonverbal, we didn't have those kinds of issues that that you may have had with your brother Jane and his whims. The biggest issue with Dennis was just trying to keep him and not hurting himself by running, out in the street or things like that. And luckily, he had brothers and sisters when he was playing. And I thought a lot about this question too. And I think when I think about it being, and it may not be as emotionally draining, but like I said, with Dennis being our second child, we thought with the little knowledge that we had, that there was a playbook that we had discovered, because we were going to follow the same playbook as his brother. And we'd got him in the early intervention, and which was good. And we got him in the early intervention earlier than we got David in. We might have gotten him in about 3. David probably didn't get in the early intervention till about 4. So we thought we were on the right path there. He got through early intervention and then got into a resourced room in the Philadelphia School District. But maybe this may have been before Lori's mother's effects got through the school system. They were cutting things, and the Philadelphia School District is not very resourced, so they didn't have a lot of resources. And what we discovered when Dennis got to 3rd grade, and I walked into the room, that although David had been in a classroom of one, I guess he was 2, it was a teacher and an aide for 6, I think there were 6 to 8 boys. Dennis was in a room with 13 other kids. And we looked at that and we said, okay, we need a different play. We can't follow the same playbook. And that's really, and I felt badly. I said, maybe we were just, trying to follow the recipe for David, and maybe we done Dennis a disservice by that, and I don't know if we had or not, but we were at least cognizant enough of the fact that this was not going to work. What worked for David was not going to work for Dennis. And we made a really, really tough decision to say, okay, we're going to put him on a bus. It was like an hour. I mean, Dennis had a very long day. He was out at the Cantor Center. We were living in Philadelphia, 45 minutes to an hour, drive every day. And that was a really kind of tough decision to take him and put him in that context. But in contrast, when we walked to his classroom, it was a sense of relief that he had found a place that was going to be able to provide him the level of resources that he really needed, not the ones that his brother could have used, but the ones that he needed. So a lot of our, emotion was around the fact that, we had to send him away, and he was on a bus for maybe 2 hours a day. But we thought that was really the best thing for him at that time.
Yeah, I can remember my moment in time. It wasn't as big, maybe, at Jane and Clay, because it was a moment in time. And I have some notes just in case I go off track. But it was when I had to hand my mother a letter. My mother, after my father died, lost her hearing overnight. And she was in and out of skilled nursing. And I knew she wasn't able to take care of my sister. So I had to write her a letter to explain that my sister was going to move into a group home. And maybe it was a gift that it was a letter, because I spent a lot of time rewriting that letter and trying to get just the right tone. My mother was a very smart woman. She was a very kind woman. But for some reason, she didn't believe she was going to die. And that idea of death was too big for them, so they couldn't plan. So I had to write a letter and wrestle control of my sister's future from my living mother. And I handed her that letter, and I remember watching her read it. And my main focus was, we all have the same goals: for my sister to be happy, healthy, and cared for. And you, my wonderful mother, are not able to do this anymore. And you need to take care of yourself. You need to try to heal yourself. And my sister needs to go to a place where she will get the care she needs. We both broke down crying, but at the end was an offer. I found a place. Will you please come with me and my sister, Lisa, and look at it? And we took my mom in a wheelchair, and she couldn't hear anyone, and she loved it. She said, this is a beautiful home. She met the staff. She was so happy. And what started as the worst day of my life, and I did this all in one day, gave her the letter and drove her in the car the same day, turned out to be the best day, because I got the blessing of somebody I loved for someone I loved.
God bless you.
Oh, geez, Lori, man, you make me cry.
Sorry, guys.
So beautiful.
Making me cry.
You know,
That's beautiful.
Amy, think the audience is hearing a theme here that these moments of transition in life are maybe the most emotionally charged, if, as a family,
Mhm.
as a sibling, as a parent. When we made the decision that, we weren't going to live forever and we wanted to proactively plan ahead and give Jackson what young men do. They live together, they get an apartment, they have those kinds of social bonds, and getting him set up in a group home, the idea of taking some of the pressure off of his siblings for the time when we're not going to be there, and they'd have the ability to participate in his life as much as possible, but they could have their own lives. That was one of the hardest days, I think, for me, probably even more than Kim. I lost it that day. Dropped him off at the group home. It was we knew it was the right thing. We thought it was for ourselves, and I think it's turned out right. But the other thing I would say, kind of, that's more of an internal, from an external point of view, in terms of those emotionally charged moments. You live them every day, right? Somebody in the community looks at you different, looks at your kid different. Get your kid under control. What's wrong with your kid? They're weird, or this or that. And maybe the hardest was when we were trying to open a group home, and the local communities get to weigh in on these things. And to have the not in my backyard mind
NIMBYs.
About your child show up, and it was mean, and it was vicious, and it was just truly awful. These are citizens. They're entitled to respect, and they have rights, and they're entitled to whatever benefit society provides. And to have people try to fight a group home for 4 young men with special needs, it was heartbreaking. And the only thing we can do for those micro things in society, or larger moment like that, is to try to have, some level of grace and recognize these people have no idea what they're talking about. And we'll show them, and we'll teach them and educate them. And we've always tried to be as open as possible about, our son's disability, because how else are people going to learn unless you're open enough to share with them? And maybe they're a little kinder to somebody else one day. So that was a hard day, but now amazing. The community so helpful, so supportive. It's been a phenomenal turnaround when people get that actual experience, and can learn and grow. And so I think there's a lot of beauty in what our children can bring to those around them.
James, my mother went through the exact same thing, trying to get a group home where we lived. And what was shocking about it wasn't just the community didn't want it there, but some of her friends who knew Johnny well didn't want it there. And that was tough. But
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
I'm glad to hear that things are changing in that regard.
Thank you for sharing these really challenging moments. And as I look at the time, it's almost 2:00, so we have about 16 minutes left.
Wow.
We're not gonna race through our questions. I want you to take time, but we might skip around a bit. But I do want to. We've talked about these challenging moments. We know that there are also times of joy and happiness. Looking back, I'd love to hear just a brief story about a day or an event or a moment that brought you the most joy. And Amy, I'm going to start with you here.
Sure. Yeah. So there's like the powerful things. They were just talking about the hard things, but when you get your kid into the school that you need, or you get the waiver, that's a relief. Those are big things. But really the best moments, I think, are the small little things that happen. So when I think back, like Annie blew out her first birthday candles at 8, and that was a huge moment. She got potty trained at 10 and started to speak at 10. She had no language before 10.
Wow.
She's still
Wow.
minimally verbal, but that was a good year with the potty training, let me tell you. At 13, she learned how to blow her nose for the first time. And that was great, other than I could never light a candle in my house because she was blowing between that and the candle and birthday candle. She's blowing everything up. And then at like 16, she had her first birthday party where, she doesn't have friends of her own. And that's a sad part of her journey, but she doesn't feel like that. She has my friends, our family friends, and they are all her friends. So they were all there for her, 16th birthday. So it's all these things that I think families who don't live with, a disability in their life or challenges like these might take for granted, but we do not, for sure. We are very grateful for those little moments that are big moments.
It is really amazing how you can have just the flip side of the awful things. Can be the joyous things. And for us, I look back, Jackson was included in elementary school with a shadow. And there was some it wasn't clear that the school district really wanted that initially, and that they came around and they supported it. But I still remember when he was graduating from, I guess, 5th or 6th grade, kind of the alpha male of the class would sit next to him, and they were like sitting there waiting in the graduation ceremony, and Jackson would try to get up, and this other boy would just put his hand on Jackson's knee and say, "No, not yet, not yet, not yet." And then it was time. He's like, "Okay, go." And the school psychologist came over to us, and I still remember and he wasn't sold on this. And he said, "I have never had a class of kids as kind as these kids are." And he attributed to their experience with Jackson. So
Well, I'd like to jump in on that too, real quickly. So, and I'm going to tell a story about Dennis and David, but very similar to the experience that Jackson had. David, my oldest son, went through public high school, and he was voted the most popular kid in the school, which was amazing to me because of the kind of support that he got. But relating to Dennis, and particularly with Devereux, the happiest moments in Dennis's life when he went to the Cancer Center was getting in that pool. He absolutely loved that pool. And anytime we came there and they were there in the pool, the joy on his face it was incalculable, that how much he enjoyed it. And it really helped fulfill what I'd like to call his happy quotient. That's all we try to do in life, is try to figure out how can we get closest to fulfilling our children's happy quotient. And he was happiest when he was in Devereux, and he was so happy when he was in that pool. And that was a nice contrast to some of the other challenges that he faced.
Time for one more. Mine's short. I recently discovered or remembered this event, which was so long ago. It was in the recesses of my mind, but I just digitized a bunch of old movies. And I was looking at them the other night, and there was a clip of my brother holding my first son for the first time. Jamie was 2 months old. And you have never seen anybody prouder in your life. He'd look down at him, and then he'd look up at the camera and smile like he just couldn't believe it. And then he'd look down at him again. And I just, lots of happy tears about that one. It was amazing.
Goodness. Well, thank you. Thank you all. And, one thing I want to share, because I saw someone talk about this in the chat earlier during Greg's presentation. Caregiving can be isolating because it's hard for others to possibly understand what you're going through, you and your family. I'd like to start with James here. When you think back, is there anything you wish your friends, your colleagues, or other family members understood a bit better about what you were dealing with or what your experience was?
Well, people aren't used to, when someone's sick, they might get sick and get better, they might get sick and pass away, but very seldom is there something that's forever. And it's really important for people to understand that, this is forever. This is our new normal when it was new. It's our normal today. And that, friendship, that support, the need for it doesn't go away over time. It's always there. Maybe there's moments where it's more acute and you need more support, but a little check-in, a little acknowledgement, a little acceptance and understanding of, make the, the not neurotypical, make it normal in your life too. And so, our best friends are the ones who, just accept Jackson as he is, and he's just, doing his thing when we get together. And, I know my oldest son, he picked his friends based upon how they treated his brother, who
Wow.
was very, like, he would come home and say, so-and-so said this about Jackson and they're not welcome in our house anymore. So yeah, I think friends can make or break all of us. And we talked about community and relationships, and yeah, having friends who just realize that the need for support doesn't really go away. It may change, but just accepting something that's a little different is the most
James, I was Mother of the Year. I used to tell my boys, you are welcome to punch whoever in the nose if they say anything bad about your sister, and I will come bail you out of that principal's office. It's unacceptable.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. They never did.
Thankfully.
Lori, if I could have you answer that, and then maybe we'll move on to the next question.
Yeah, I'm gonna go from a sibling perspective. I just really want the people around me, especially my friends who are in a similar situation, to learn from my tale of woe. And I really want the parents to step up and do something hard. I want you to sit down and have those difficult conversations. I want you to realize that somebody's going to be gone and somebody else is going to have to take the torch, and to maybe put aside your emotions. I do believe in acknowledging them and say they're here and we all love each other and we all have the common goal. Now, let's talk about logistics. Let's get a lawyer. Let's get a special needs trust. Let's do the ticky-tack stuff that nobody wants to do. And you may be too scared to do them. And if we can't do them, let's find somebody who can help us. But I think that's the thing when I see parents say, oh, I know the sibling will take them. Well, have you talked to that other child? Have you sat down and had those conversations in a very open, friendly way, not telling them what they're going to do, but really making this and talking to that sibling with the special needs or that child. What do you want for your life? What does happiness look like for you? And to know that things can always change, but let's try something. Let's think about step one. So that's just what I wish people would get from my experience.
Thank you all so much. As we're listening to all of your stories and all those who are watching today, we all know that there is no job more important than caring for others, but it is equally important to care for the caregiver. We've all heard flight attendants say, put on your own oxygen mask before placing them on others. Jane, for this one, I'd like to start with you, and I'd love to run through all of our panelists for this one.
Did you say me?
I'm going to start with you, and here's the question, Jane. Sorry. What your advice or tips, even though it's probably impossible, next to impossible, what advice can you offer to make sure we all put our own oxygen mask on first?
Well, I'm going to be a little contrary here and say sometimes you can't. When the person sitting next to you is pulling oxygen masks off other people or you, sometimes you've got to get them some oxygen so they calm down before you can put yours on, and then you have to breathe deeply. I mean, it's in dealing with a crisis, it's really easy just to park your feelings and emotions at the door, because that's what you have to do. There's something to be done and you need to be there to do it. But you got to go to baggage claim and get them, to mix metaphors there, and honor them. And I think our family did a very good job in the positive end of it, of having fun, of having humor. It was a little more challenge for them to acknowledge the swamp, to go back to Greg's talk, the difficult times. And he's right. It's the whole package that needs to happen. But that's the way it is.
I like that you said you have to go back and get that baggage after.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to say it. Can I
Yeah.
go next, Amy?
Absolutely.
I
Please
want to
just jump right in.
Yeah, I just want to offer, I mean, it's so much harder than you think. Everybody says it. I say it all the time to the families I work with, but it's really hard to practice. But I will tell you that, and we're exhausted, right? What time do we have for ourselves at the end of our days when we're so tired as it is? The few things I would say is, one, learn how to ask for help. Just like Susan had said in her talk, that was a super hard thing for me to do. I thought I should know everything about all of my kids and handle it all. But when I started asking people for help, even if it was asking a neighbor to pick up bananas at the store or pizza or whatever, it was so much easier. Consider getting a therapist or a support group that you feel comfortable in, so that you have someone to talk to. That's a really important thing as well. Don't be afraid of antidepressants. They don't have to be forever, but they can get you through some really dark times. And I still think we have that stigma out there about them, but I know so many families who have benefited, so many parents who have benefited and gotten their resilience and strength back by just having that little, boost. So I think those are the main tips.
I'm going to jump in a little bit in the asking for help part. For me, I also built my resilience asking for help, but also looking at the people who are on the caregiving team as my teammates and not my adversaries. And saying, when something was going wrong, rather than trying to point fingers of fault, saying, hey guys, can you help me? How can I help you better? And sometimes throwing out the bad suggestion, because sometimes the bad suggestion leads to better suggestions, rather than a blank page of, I don't know what to do, saying, what if we did this? And then they might change it around and come up with something better. So that change in perspective of, oh, I have to go to my sister's yearly care meeting, to I get to go. I get to talk to these people who have a great perspective and they're going to help. And so looking at them as teammates.
Yeah. The one other thing that I would add, and I think Amy touched on this, is respite is a good thing. And I know that goes in the context of asking for help, but and I'm not talking about necessarily an emergency, but just you are tired. It is exhausting. And you do need to just sometimes take a break for you and your own health and your other family members' health, is to take respite. And so if those services are available to you, I would encourage you to take them from time to time.
Uh, I would also just echo the importance of the relationships, and whether you're asking for support or just having other human, relationships that you can count on. Reddit subgroups are probably a wonderful thing, but they are no substitute for real world human interactions. And I think to this day, I know Kim still plays Pokino with a bunch of moms of kids with special needs. They've been doing it for 30 years. And those little moments that you can share, I think there's no substitute for that. Just going back to the point of the caregivers, the women are overwhelmingly the caregivers in our society and in the world. And not surprisingly, overwhelmingly, the number of registrants and participants in this conference. So I would encourage, as I think about all the times that I've cried, as I've talked about, I would really encourage everybody to grab, your father, your brother, your husband, your whoever, pull them into this, these kinds of things. And it's really important for them to understand that, real men care.
James, I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm a later adopter. You know, my wife, I have to admit, carried the burden. Dennis's mother, we're not married anymore. We're still good friends, and we jointly work in terms of his care and his brother's care. But I was a late adopter, and she did much of the heavy labor, and really want to give a shout out to her. But yeah, more men need to get involved in this care. So go out and grab them and bring them to the table.
And
Well,
Clay, if they
next
don't,
year,
if
next year,
they,
let's
go
get
ahead.
more guys. So.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
or you just get a second husband like I did, who's an amazing stepdad. So you can go
Yeah.
either way, right?
Listen, I'd like to keep the wife I've got. Don't give me
That's
ideas.
great. You've got a great one. That's
If she's not
perfect.
watching,
Yeah.
I just want to underscore what everybody has said about team and relationships. I took notes on some of these questions, and I think I had teamwork written down about 5
At
times.
times.
Yeah.
It's just about making sure that your loved one is, they need to, other people need to establish relationships with them. But you said something about James, about normalizing your son into the community. That's just what my parents did. You know, his birthday was a national holiday as far as we were concerned. The whole community was there, and it really helps because people know him, or familiar, and have a little inkling as to what you're going through.
Yeah.
Well, I can't express my sincere gratitude enough for our panelists, for your time and participation. We didn't get to all the questions, but we heard some incredible stories and a lot of sharing. And I am so grateful for your candid and open and honest experiences that you share. You are all inspirational to us. And truly, we are so happy and thankful that you're part of the Devereux family. So thank you again. And at this point, I'll turn it back to Amy Kelly, who will introduce the next session. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you for all of our panelists. And if the time goes so fast whenever we have a lived experience panel, I feel like, because there's so much to share. If that's something that you all want to hear more of, make sure you note that in the survey that will be coming out after, so you can let us know. We could arrange to do it a little differently next year. I'm going to continue on with our program. It's been a great day so far. If you've been here for the whole conference, you will remember Greg Hedler, our positive psychologist and licensed social worker extraordinaire from the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. He is back, and this time he brought his colleague, Lisa Squires. So let me tell you a little bit about Lisa. Lisa Squires has been a practicing nurse for 30 years after receiving her nursing degree from Johns Hopkins University. The majority of her career was spent in critical care, predominantly transport nursing at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. She transitioned to her role as a holistic nurse and integrative health program nurse coordinator in 2018 and began developing skills in many integrative health modalities. And she has recently become program supervisor. She holds certifications in holistic nurse coaching, yoga, acupressure, Reiki, aromatherapy, infant and pediatric massage, clinical hypnosis, and mindfulness. This is a chick I need to know. Her goals are always to meet the patient where they are and deliver high quality evidence-based care directed at the whole person. They will also have the chat feature on for their portion of the program. And I want to give a big welcome to Greg and Lisa. Thank you both.
Thank you again, Amy. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Greg. It's so nice to see you.
It is great to be here with you in this space. Incredible attendees are joining us today. I've got to spend some of the morning with them and excited to offer now a 30-minute opportunity to practice some integrative health. And Lisa and I are here to guide us through this experience. One of the things that I offer as we go into this practice with you is this question that I continue to play with. It is something that came from my personal space, is this question around what would bring a little bit more ease to this moment? What would bring a little bit more ease to this moment? And we can think about this in so many different ways. It's like even if you're sitting with your knees kind of pushed together and you didn't realize that, yet you checked in and said, what would bring more ease to me right now in this moment? You might be able to soften those knees a little bit and allow them not to be pinned up against each other. Maybe you adjust your seat in some way. This is a question, truthfully, that I continue to play with every day. A humorous part of this is that in my home, the way that my shelves had been organized in my kitchen was really awkward when I came to think about it, that I was always reaching for something that was too far up. And if I moved the shelves around in some way, it could have been easier. And so I would readjust it, and life is different. This is what I think about in terms of integrative health. It is a question about what could bring a little bit more ease to the experience. And the three modalities that Lisa and I will experience with you today are all there as invitation to practice a little bit more ease. At any time something does not feel easeful in your body, it's a great indication that maybe we stop. You get to be at choice throughout our whole experience today. As I said earlier, everything here is invitation, not obligation. And so each of these are a sampling. There's no subscription that you need to pay for. There's no gym membership that comes with this. It is all for your benefit and for your experiencing of ease, a little bit more. So we'll move through three practices today, and Lisa's going to set up some expectation around the experience.
Yeah, so just know, again, invitation, not obligation, that you can participate fully. You can observe. There's actually evidence that shows that even when you visualize yourself making these movements, that they provide benefit both to your body and your mind. So know that it's okay to stay seated. Everything could be done seated, or maybe you're feeling like you need a stretch break, so feel free to stand up. And move about your room in a way that feels really supportive of you in this time here. So just to get ourselves started, maybe we can release our poll, Debbie. We want to know, like, what is your experience with some of these things? So integrative health is sort of the buzzword these days about complementary, or sometimes things that are thought of as alternative. And we like to think of them as integrating because sometimes we still need Western medicine too. So I'm really curious as to what you guys have already had some experience with. And maybe it's nothing, maybe it's a lot of things, but we just love to know where everyone's starting out from, and everything you share here is just valued.
Wonderful. So I see that everybody is starting to make selections at the poll on their screen. We have about 25% of our group that has made selections, and you're able to choose as many as apply to you. So let's just give it just a few short moments to give folks the opportunity to make their selections, and then I'll close the poll and I'll share results with the group.
Lisa, what was one of your first modalities that you experienced as a practitioner?
Well, interestingly, I think I mentioned my past was all about critical care and transport, and so much anxiety that mindfulness became a buzzword, and so that was the first thing I went to, and I have to tell you that it actually didn't land so well on me. I really couldn't even sit still for 3 minutes, and then someone explained yoga to me, and I started to use yoga. And so that was probably the first one that really became true. And then as I practiced yoga, the mindfulness pieces came with it. Oh, I see a question in the chat about what is a body scan practice. So it's a mindfulness technique where you just focus your attention on a different part of the body and notice it without judgment, with some curiosity and compassion. And you might start at the head and work down, or you might start at the toes and work up. Oh, wow. And there was a whole health coach at the VA. Oh, I love that. The VA is amazing behind some of the research in integrative health. I really respect what the work they're doing there. And someone's asking where the poll is. I think it pops up on your screen, but is there a possibility that maybe someone wouldn't see it or needs to open up something to see the poll?
That might be true. Sometimes folks on phones aren't able to see it, so we'll try
Oh, okay.
to
share out the results, which are now on the screen for people to be able to see. If you all could share it out with folks, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Oh, so I love that. It looks like the highest, 67% have done meditation and breath work before. And then we have another layer of mindfulness-based stress reduction, yoga, body scan. Let's see. And then just a few people doing Qigong, a few people doing some guided imagery and visualization, and a few people with Tai Chi.
What I am impressed with is that like every box or option has been chosen by somebody in our room. There's an experience that somebody's had in some way, shape, or form with integrative modalities.
Yeah, that's great. And I think also to remember and acknowledge that these practices really come from, indigenous practices of there's indigenous people everywhere, and these are really rooted in sort of these ancient practices that people have done for thousands of years to really support themselves.
Thank you for that, Lisa. So one of the things that we'll put out there for you to think about is this idea of when we come to an integrative practice, we might think about that question that I offered earlier about like, what am I seeking? What am I looking for in terms of what do I want to support today? What do maybe I want to bring more easefulness to? And some of it could be, I want to practice an integrative modality in order to energize, to sort of unburden myself. Maybe there's some stress that we want to release in some way. Maybe there's some physical body movement that may feel really good and right to us. So one of the things that I think about, Lisa, when I get to practice yoga, breath work, meditation, is a thought first of what is it that I want to gain from the experience in some way, maybe setting an intention or a thought around what do I want to be more easeful around? And I think that sometimes can really support or help me choose which one of these modalities is best for you. You have thoughts about that? No.
Me?
Yeah. Do you have thoughts about that?
I
Yeah.
have thoughts about that.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think you actually nailed it. Because I think we often talk about de-stressing, but you pointed out a really important thing about you can use these to energize. I mean, if you're feeling really exhausted and you really need to get yourself moving and accomplish or do, there's something you have to do, like that's non-negotiable. Like you can use these techniques to like give you some energy to get some gumption and meet your day with what you have. Ooh, I love this share in the chat. I love dedicating my practice to someone and holding them in my heart while I do it, like in yoga and meditation. I love that too. I actually, when I teach yoga, I open up with a mantra that is, may all beings experience happiness and joy, free from suffering. I think that it's so powerful.
So with the time that we have with you, we will invite you to think about maybe it's an intention setting, maybe it's a space in your body you want to feel softer in, maybe it's a boost of energy in the afternoon where I am. Some energy feels really good right now. So the first experience that we're going to offer is a miniature version of a breath practice. This is one that all bodies can have accessibility to in ways that feel good to you. So check in with yourself of what is going to be most supportive. So first and foremost, I'd like to take a moment and find a comfortable seat that may be adjusting or moving your body in a way that feels a bit more supported, more balanced, maybe even. You can place both feet firmly on the floor. If you choose to put your feet on the floor, as I am, what I like to do is move my ankles so they're directly below my knees. So this may mean moving my feet forward a little bit so that I begin to create this really nice picture of my ankle and knee in line with each other. And then you can take two fists and place the fist between the knees, which will maybe separate the knees a little bit further apart. And what you've done is created a foundation, hip to knee, knee to ankle. And all of a sudden, this creates a stronger foundation where you can push and root down into, and at the same time begin to extend and elongate through the spine and allow the crown of the head to move towards the ceiling. You've created this container now for your breath to be in. The practice that I will move us through is one of inhaling through the nose and then a slow 6 count exhale through the mouth. Meaning, again, I'll say it, inhale for 4, which I didn't say, and exhale for 6. This is one in which it's going to regulate the nervous system and it's going to create an ideal space maybe of calm for some of us in some bodies. The opposite of this could be true as well. If you were to inhale and take short exhales, you could be energizing the body in that way. So as Lisa named, right, these practices can work in both ways. The exhale, determining the length of it, can either be a calming exhale with longer or shorter, sharp exhales bring some energy to the body. Today, we'll practice elongated breath. So with your spine elongated, your body in a strong seated position, I'm going to invite you to first check in with the breath. Notice how you're breathing. See how the breath moves in and out of your body. Perhaps even begin to bring awareness to where you are breathing from. Your belly, your ribs, upper chest and clavicle. Do nothing to change the breath. Do everything to acknowledge that breath is moving through you. And then, with your next exhale, push all the breath out of the body, coming to a space of empty, maybe belly button to spine to empty it all out. And now slowly begin to inhale through the nose for a count of 4. Inhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4. Slow exhale through the mouth for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then when the body calls for it, inhale through the nose again for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last time, when the body calls, inhale through the nose for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And return to a natural rhythm of your breath, allowing your body to breathe you as it will. And take a moment to notice. Maybe something feels slightly adjusted or changed. Maybe not. That is also very much permitted. We practiced for 3 cycles of this breath, and you can even go up to 5 at points and times. These moments of breath awareness gives us the ability to, again, offer choice and bring ease if we so desire it in that moment. So for me, on a hectic day, pausing and taking these 3 thoughtful, mindful breaths is one of the ways to soften and bring a little bit more ease to maybe a rushed situation. In the chat, if you feel moved to, how did that practice go for you? Was there anything that you noticed in terms of a shift or a change? Possibly, possibly not. Yet any words to describe your experience? Welcome that in the chat. Yeah.
Might see a lot of calming, relaxing. Someone had the urge to yawn.
Lovely. Yeah. Notice
Calming,
that. 3
peaceful.
breaths. 3 breaths.
Refreshing.
Yeah.
And I got a refreshing.
Grounding. Nice.
Grounding and roots.
So Lisa, I'll pull it over to you to take this peaceful calm that we have and see what we can do with it.
Yeah. So yoga is really about uniting our breath with movement. So, and linking that. So we had started with the breath and we noticed our breath and maybe we shifted our breath. So now let's pair that with a little bit of movement. So again, wherever you are, whether it's seated or standing, take an in breath and take your right ear to your right shoulder. Stretch. And on the exhale, return to center. And then inhale your left ear to your left shoulder. Exhale, come to center. Inhale, right ear to right shoulder, an invitation to even extend your arm out to the side and down, just to explore that sensation. And exhale, come to center and relax your arm. Your invitation to extend your right arm away from the body. And exhale, come to center. Maybe turn your nose over to the right, looking right. Exhale, come to center. Inhale to the left. Exhale, come to center. Inhale to the right. Exhale, come to center. And now because I'm adding this in, take an inhale and bring your shoulders up to your ears. And on the exhale, just let them go.
We'll continue to add on from there with that awareness of our shoulders. We're going to practice a seated cat-cow position. And in this position, that awareness to the shoulders Lisa just brought to our attention, I want you to pull the shoulders back behind you and push your heart forward and allow the back of your body to begin to hug together those shoulder blades. See if you can bring them closer to one another. And then, as a practice in the body first, round the shoulders now, draw the chin in towards the chest and create a roundedness in the back body. And now we'll link it to breath. On the inhale, now draw the shoulders back, press the chest forward, draw the shoulder blades together. And on the exhale, begin to round the shoulders, tuck the chin in towards the chest. Do this 2 more times. Inhale, my palms are on my thighs and drawing towards my hips as my shoulders push back. And then exhale, my hands glide towards my knees, chin to chest, round the upper back, release all the breath out of the body. Last time here, inhale, draw back, bright heart, draw the shoulders together, notice the stretch, and then exhale, round the back, soften the chest. On your inhale, return back to center, soften the shoulders away from the ears, and back to Lisa.
As you inhale, you might think about raising your hands up and over your head if that feels comfortable. And then on your exhale, we're going to twist to the right. So bring your left arm in front, your right arm in back, and twist and look towards the right side. Breathing there, actually, and noticing it's a little harder to breathe when you're twisted. But as you exhale and release breath, that maybe there's a little room to twist some more. On your next exhale, bring your hands back up over your head if you are able. And exhale to left. On your next exhale, return to center. Just notice the sensation of twist. Notice the awareness in your body. Maybe if you're willing to share in the chat one word that describes how your body feels right now.
Aligned. Faith, the yoga practice that I have studied is one about alignment. And that body alignment, muscle alignment, ligaments and bone, like all of that is offered to us as opportunity to connect with our strength. So I appreciate you naming alignment as something that showed up for you.
Yeah, but I also hear achy, pulled, and just acknowledging that all of these sensations are welcome. And, maybe you were hoping or wishing for something different, but just noticing what is just part of our yoga practice and being with that sensation.
Mm.
Um, Yeah, and you do, as you move your body, you start to notice where there's tightness, where there's tension that maybe you weren't paying attention to before. So we get so busy in our lives, we sort of lose like the sensation of our body. We forget that our shoulders are up to here and we're tense and our muscles are tight. So I think it's really a neat practice to just notice where your body is.
I didn't realize how tight my shoulders were until we were moving into that cat cow and realized how much I enjoyed being in that one position just to feel that sense of tightening and sort of self-massage.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is, sorry, we don't have time for that today, but I was going to say, when you notice that tension, like maybe even some self-massage if you're noticing that your neck's really tight or your shoulders are really tight. It's all well and good to go to the spa and get a massage once in a while, but we really do have hands and the capacity and ability to try and soothe ourselves and do a little self-care. And that was really just a few minutes. So the next thing moving on to is called tapping or EFT, emotional freedom tapping. You might have heard that before. And it's really a practice that pairs the points of acupuncture or acupressure with a cognitive component to it, because what we're doing is shifting our mindset. So to start with tapping, you first want to be able to name the feeling or emotion that you're having now. And I know Greg said in his talk earlier, in your talk about building your bark, that there was some feelings and emotions. And they can be simple as like frustrated, mad, angry, sad. But starting with a feeling that we're having and being able to really discern what that is really helpful. So just going to ask you to think about the feeling that you're struggling with the most right now, that you're feeling. And then what you're going to do while you're tapping is saying that I feel whatever it is. I feel really frustrated. And you can start on the corner of your hand, like as if you're going to karate chop. So you can tap there with your other hand. I feel. You switch to the other side. What is it that you feel? Because we're going to, if it's something that maybe is non-preferred, not necessarily a positive, right? I feel tired. I feel tired. But I know that I am doing the best job that I can. And so we're going to switch to this point between the eyebrows. I know I'm doing the best job that I can. I fully love and accept myself. And you can come right on the corners of your eyes. You can pair that with, even with everything I'm carrying, I know I am doing the best job that I can. I can meet this moment with a little more ease. So that's just right in the middle of your cheekbones. And this is one of my favorite ones. And you'll notice when people are thinking really hard, they might do this. We know internally, our bodies know ways to soothe ourselves. So just tapping here. You can repeat, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling whatever it is I'm feeling. And I know I'm brave and strong. And then we'll end with the last on the collarbones. There are other points, but we'll just work with the part that can be in the camera today. You want to end with the part about I'm doing the best that I can. I completely accept myself for whatever that feeling that you're relating to. I'm giving myself the biggest hug I can today. I'm having compassion for myself today. So that is it helps to shift our mindset. And what we're doing is actually giving signals to our brain to help reprogram that wiring in our brain. So it combines a physical sensation. It's on what I tell kids are like magic points where they're just windows into your body. And it really helps you reframe and acknowledge what it is that you're feeling. And you can completely love and accept yourself. And you can be compassionate with yourself. And you're strong. Oh, I love this. Someone says, when I feel overwhelmed, I slowly rub up and down between my eyebrows from the bridge of my nose upwards. So this is a very magic point. It's called yin tong. It's a magic point if you ever have a baby that needs to go to sleep. It's extremely relaxing. It's really, where our insight comes from. So that's wonderful. See, you're already doing it. I didn't have to teach you this. Like we have these like little insights into ourselves. So I also, let's see. I also just want to say that this was really a very short, brief practice. And I love, like, you all have shared some of the feelings that shifted, even in those like really short moments.
Outstanding.
And I probably should. I really want to share that there are resources from CHOP. So Integrative Health at chop.edu/resources has instructional sheets for tapping, has different yoga poses and breath techniques for stress, for sleep. Those are all free, open to the public. You can download them to your phone. You can print them out. So I welcome you to explore those, and not to be overwhelming, but to know that there are resources that you can use both for yourself and your child.
I'm just going to let you know that once this Zoom ends, you all will receive a survey in your browser automatically. And we're asking that you please, please, please fill that out for us so that we can understand more about what you're looking for and what we can do next year. And yes, I said next year we have another conference. It's already planned, February 6th, 2027. That will be our second conference. Thank you so much for letting me be your MC today, and I will now turn it over to Devereux's Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Ria Fernandez.
Thank you very much, Amy. What a truly wonderful day this has been. Hello, everyone. I'm Ria Fernandez, and as Amy said, it is my great pleasure to serve in the role of Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for Devereux. Today, I also have the pleasure of bringing Devereux's very first National Family Resilience Conference to a close. This conference has been a real labor of love for our team. It is one small way in which we can give back to all of the families, caregivers, and professionals who give their whole hearts every day to individuals with special needs. We also hope we've made many new friends today who we'll get to know in the coming years. Our discussions today focused on the importance of developing and cultivating resilience, and it is so important to remember, especially in today's complex world, that we are best prepared to care for our family, our friends, our work, and our world when we make ourselves a priority and take good care of ourselves. Personal resilience is a critical skill that is built slowly and steadily with intention, thought, care, support, and resolve over our entire lifetime. We hope today's conference brought you new and useful tools in your own resilience journey. Resilience starts first and foremost with being attuned to our own needs as we rush through life, working hard to care for all the people and things that mean so much to us. It's very easy to forget to care for and be kind to ourselves. When we prioritize our own wellness and mental health, we create a foundation that allows us to support not only ourselves, but all those people and things that are most important to us much better. Helping those we serve cultivate resilience is an important part of our culture at Devereux, and that extends to helping you, our friends and Devereux families, as part of that community of support and care. As Devereux's Chief Operating Officer, I get to see and experience the incredible resilience of our dedicated staff every day who balance their own lives, family needs, and challenges, and put the needs of our individuals and families at the forefront as they step into their work every day. Words fall short to thank them enough and express how much we admire them. I am also awestruck by the fortitude and resolve our families show. You are an inspiration to all of us. Thank you for being with us today. We hope you will join us again next year. And if you will give us one very last closing minute, my colleague, Devereux's Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer, Leah Yo, would like to thank today's speakers. Leah?
Thank you, Ria. As we say goodbye today, feeling resilient and refreshed and grateful for this time together, I would just like to say thank you to everyone who made today so wonderful. So to Devereux's President and CEO, Carl Clark, and of course our board chair, our first female board chair since our founder, Helena, Lisa McCann. And of course, to licensed clinical social worker and positive psychology coach from the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, Greg Hedler. Greg, thank you for the wonderful lessons in how to build our bark. I took a great deal away from your sessions today, as I am sure our entire audience did. And thank you to your partner in Integrative Healthy Movement, also from CHOP, Integrative Health Clinical Supervisor Lisa Squires. To our very own director at Devereux Center for Resilient Children, Susan D'Amico, thank you for the excellent lessons in adult resilience. We hope all of our attendees today will visit Devereux's website and take advantage of the many free resources we have available there to help build your bounce. We need to take care of ourselves, to take care of those we love, and there are many resources available for you to help build your bounce. To our wonderful family panel who shared their moving stories of resilience. Devereux Board Chair Emeritus Clay Armbrister, Devereux Advisory Board Member Lori DeMoon, Devereux trustees and co-founders of our National Family Advisory Board, James Schwab and Jane Taylor, Devereux Director of Family Engagement, and our wonderful MC for the day, Amy Kelly, and to their expert moderator for the panel, Devereux's National Director of Communications, Amy Ashman. And of course, last but certainly not least, to the redoubtable former news anchor, New York Times bestselling author and host of the 10% Happier podcast, Dan Harris. Your session was just wonderful, Dan. It was an honor to have you with us today. I have been one of those people whose monkey mind has been resistant to meditation, and your session was wonderful, taught me a great deal, and I think everyone took a great deal away from it. So we thank you. It was lovely to have you. Today has been wonderful. We can't wait for next year's conference on February 6th, 2027. We hope you will mark your calendars. We hope you will join us. And we're off to say goodbye. As Devereux's Chief Strategy Officer, one of my greatest privileges is partnering with our staff and families to support the wonderful individuals in our care. And it's my hope that together with new friends that we made today, we can extend that mission of care and work together to build a more resilient, kinder, and more engaging world for all people. So thank you for sharing your day with us and for allowing us to share a little bit of our Devereux with you. Have a lovely afternoon. Goodbye.